Hello, and welcome to Scuttlebutt, the War Movie Review podcast. We're happy to have you with us as we take a look at films from the dawn of cinema to today. We aim to provide a raw and unapologetic review of each film's cinematography, historical accuracy, and delivery. In the process of analysis, certain details will be revealed. These spoilers are only divulged to ensure a fair assessment of each film. We suit up this week and head to Baghdad with Kathryn Bigelow's 2008 Iraq War drama, The Hurt Locker. As always, I'm joined by Mike A.
Yo.
Mike B.
Hey.
Nate.
Kate Bigelow, Mel Gigolo. Yep.
And this week's guest, co-host and long-range target shooter of the YouTube channel 9-Hole Reviews and a former Army Ordnance officer himself, Henry Chan.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks for joining us, man.
You say that.
Guys.
You say that.
You'll never be able to get the next 2 hours
Brian,
out of.
You actually got it. You actually got it. Jesus.
Hey, a broken clock's still right twice a day.
Once.
You know? So
Yeah. All right. Anyway, yeah.
But what do you guys think?
I think every special guest he's always gotten at least having to two or three takes. So consider yourself honored.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a special beginning.
Next guy's gonna get really fucked up. Let me tell you that.
Yeah.
Take
So
27.
after all of these movies that we've been looking at, a lot of obscure ones and such, we finally have reached The Hurt Locker. So
it was a matter of time, dude. It was like I told you guys in the little group chat. I was like, I'm kind of glad that Henry chose this because it's like now my anxiety of this looming over us for whatever period of time is over. Like we did it. It's over, and it's going to be a fun review, I think.
I think so too. But if I may, real fast, I vividly remember when this came out because it swept the awards and it was like really popular.
Mm-hmm.
I actually did not see it. I'd seen parts of it. This was my first time seeing the whole thing all the way through because it was so funny. I remember it got so much acclaim, but yet I was hearing so much shit about it. Like people were complaining of just how awful it is. So I'm just like, oh, that's weird. But I forgot about it eventually. So watching it this time, I'm like, oh, now I get it. Like now I see what's up. And it's pretty annoyingly bad in my opinion.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's one of those films that you show anyone, any military, and it's not just E.O.D. that it's bad. So obviously I know we're going to mince about some of the details. We've got Mike friggin' B here. So we're going to delve into the details, and it's going to be at some times painful realizing how poorly they executed some of these things. And that goes not just for E.O.D. procedures, and I've got to state, I'm not an E.O.D. officer. I'm an ordnance officer, which the E.O.D. is a part of the Ordnance Corps, and because of that, I ended up being very close friends with a lot of E.O.D. techs and officers alike, and also worked with them overseas and in Europe and Germany. So I know just enough to be dangerous, and I know enough about their TTPs to not push too much out there because that's actually turned into an issue in the long term. So in a sense, the inaccuracies may have saved some bomb techs' lives.
And killed other techs now.
Yeah, I was about
let's just hope they didn't use this as a training video.
Meanwhile, in Syria,
it's probably the one training video that they would watch is because you could, it's entertaining, but
don't do what Will does. Yeah,
but on the flip side of it, it did certainly win a lot of rewards. So someone's enjoying it, right? So I have a theory that there's a huge civil military divide on this. But it's not necessarily the civilians and the military against each other per se, but I don't know if you guys have ever run into an issue to where you know too much to enjoy a film.
Yes.
all the time.
Oh, yes.
I think that is a big thing to consider.
Yeah,
It's kind of the overwhelming kind of it's a huge tone of this podcast is when we review a lot of historical things that we know about, it tends to be more negative and like we couldn't enjoy it. When we review topics that we're not too familiar with, it's like, okay, I don't know enough for it to make it good or bad. And so it's very valid that you say that. Yep.
Yeah, because it's interesting because there are films out there that are inaccurate that we all enjoy. I, for one, enjoy the Tarantinos. And none of that could be anywhere close to his. Well, there's some accuracy to it. I guess the uniforms look like what they're supposed to be. But you certainly, like Inglourious Bastards, if you were to compare that to like Band of Brothers. Yeah, the Inglourious Bastards is not an accurate, historically accurate film. I certainly hope you don't walk away thinking that there was a historical event where Hitler gets, let's say, disassembled.
Bit by bit.
But I certainly enjoyed Inglourious Bastards a lot, even though I like delving into the history. So I think there's a way of doing inaccuracies with enjoyment, but for some reason, that's one of the big divides that I see with the Hurt Locker itself. Because when you seem to have any shred of knowledge on how the military works, or even worse, how the Ordnance Corps or E.O.D. works within the military, it becomes this horrible, horrible movie that everybody just abhors and hates.
Well, I agree. However, let me say that, like, I know when it comes to like my military history nerdism, it's focused primarily World War II. I don't know a lot about the goings on of how the military works when in Iraq and stuff like that, and how E.O.D. is necessarily how they work and everything like that. And I still hated the movie. I still thought I could still see through its facade. I still thought it was stupid, even though I don't have like a great knowledge about the stuff that it's showing. I thought the writing was dog shit. I thought the way it was written was terrible. It's not just that, oh, this is inaccurate. It's like, no, it fucking sucks. Like and I can get into more of that as we go, but like, I hated the writing of this movie.
Yeah, let's hear it. Nate, what do you think about this? Like, what's your first kind of opening statement?
Well, again, I'm embarrassed to say I have the Blu-ray on my shelf. I used to love watching this movie when I was like 19, 18 years old, which is when it came out. Again,
it's a very teenage movie.
Yeah, and that's what I think I'm about to lead, and it's like, I think I liked it because I was 18, 19 years old. Now going back and watching it, I'm just noticing how bad the writing was, the lines, I don't know, again, I'm in the same placement as Mike A, where it's like, I don't know E.O.D. and I know enough of military tactics from modern military procedures and tactics to know that there are things glaringly wrong. I just can't point them out, as easily as probably, let's say, Mike B and Henry. It's like, I just don't know. So I don't have that. Again, it kind of falls back to what Henry says. Like, I kind of use The Patriot as an example of this, Henry, where I don't know that much about Rev War. Therefore, I enjoy watching The Patriot. It would be, I know it once I learn it, which I'm going to learn how bad and inaccurate a Mel Gibson movie is, which it always is I'm not going to like it anymore. So, like, that's where I think it kind of comes from with this. It's like, now that I'm, in my 30s, I can see through this facade. This movie, I think the only thing that really stands out for this movie is the cinematography. It's actually pretty damn good. If you look at it as an editor and a cinematographer, it's really good, actually. It's just like the subject matter and even the weird ass writing and the plot changing stories and the whole going from being an E.O.D. to Jason Bourne in fucking Iraq. Like, I don't see, all the, it's just like, if you turn to cinematography, it's good. It's actually really good. And the editing is pretty damn good, actually, as well, for it being 2008. But the writing and the story plot are just, what the fuck is going on? And it sucks, because I used to love this movie, and now I don't really like it anymore. So I don't know, and I don't know. I could see maybe it winning something cinematography wise, and yeah, there are, not. We all both know that terrorists love to put their shells in a lotus pattern and not stack it like cordwood, So, like, it's a great.
I like a tulip pattern more personally myself.
Yeah, like
the lotus is a nice choice.
Yeah, like if I had the time, I'd do it too. But I mean, it's like I see that and I go, okay, this was made for being a cinematographer shot. You can see a lot in this movie that a lot of the situations and a lot of the things written in the story are primarily to make a good cinematographer shot. The useless smoke of creating distraction down the road, that's for cinematography. That's not for plot. So like if you think of it like that, it's a good cinematographer edited movie. But we can go into everything else that it is not. So
yeah.
But that's my opening part of that. So yeah.
I'll say my bit.
Bri.
And then we'll end it with the actual Iraq vet. So I was really so I remember this came out, like Mike said, or Michael, and it was really big. It won a bunch of awards, and I was volunteering in a museum at the time, and because we were museum nerds, we watched fucking combat footage all the time, just anything military. So a few of us watched it, and I think I saw it, and it didn't really stick with me either way, like good or bad. And then I watched it again, and like the first 10 minutes, I was like, this is not how soldiers talk. Like half my friends have been in the military, and I'm like, this is not how you talk on a deployment. This is what the fuck. And then it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And I have a lot to talk about, but I will say that the director of this film is incredibly famous. Kathryn Bigelow. She's done a lot of really good stuff. She did Point Break, Zero Dark 30. I really like Zero Dark 30. I see a bit of this in Zero Dark 30 after watching it, but like, I really feel like this was a letdown for her. Because like she's really good at doing films. And I totally see the cinematography side of it, like you were saying, Nate, like how certain aspects of it are good, but it was a real letdown. And there's so much of it just was like, what the fuck?
I do have my theories on why it won so many awards, but I'll let Henry go. Go ahead.
We'll get into that for sure.
Out of curiosity, from a film producer's perspective, do you think that this could have been a learning step for Bigelow? Like, do you think there was enough? Because when you look at Zero Dark 30, she did not make nearly the amount of technical mistakes as were here. In fact, she was very, very meticulous on that one compared to the Hurt Locker, which the Hurt Locker was just atrocious with technical mistakes. So
no,
yeah,
I agree, and I think you're onto something there. Because looking at her other filmography, she really hasn't done anything like serious military until she did this, and then she did Zero Dark 30, and then she did Detroit, which is about the Watts riots, I think, in '69. But this is really her first big forte into like military style stuff. So maybe that's it. Maybe she had the cinematography down. That's her experience. That's what she knows. But everything else was just jarring and what the fuck? Because she relied on people that didn't know what they were doing. But in 4 years or 3 years that she went from this to Zero Dark 30, night and day. Different fucking, it was, I was very surprised. Like she made that after this? Like, you know.
I don't want to skip Mike B, but her writer for this, I read somewhere that he said he spent 2 weeks with E.O.D.
Yeah, he was a from what we got last night when we were watching this, because my wife does the research while we watch. Apparently, he was a journalist embedded with E.O.D. for a few weeks or some unknown amount of time in Iraq in 2004 in Baghdad with E.O.D. As far as that person's credentials, I don't know any more than what I just kind of said. Probably got some shit wrong, but so there was some frame of reference. There was some, and then apparently one of the advisors was also a guy who was, I don't remember what branch, but he was EOD and advised on, well, he was an advisor, so we'll just leave it at that without going into details. But and so when my wife told me that, I was like, and still, this is what we got.
Well, it's weird. The guy who wrote the Hurt Locker, he also wrote Zero Dark 30.
Wow.
Oh. So yeah, no, Henry, you're actually, I think you are onto something because this was her first big kind of, I'll give my first reaction in a second, but this was her first big kind of, it seems like just kind of the exploding out into the realm of big
exploding out
right?
into the world. Nice.
No, well, okay. I'm not going to say no pun
20
intended.
meters.
That was cool.
25 meters.
Well, that all we'll get into that shit about the kill zone of certain ordinance. Yeah. Well, and Henry can. Yeah. Anyway. All right. I'll just I'll really quick do my opening statement and then we'll get into the nitty gritty. I watched this right because it came out when I was in Iraq. It came out in 2009, not 2008. It came out when I was in Iraq, and there was a bunch of the guys talking about it. They watched it. They were laughing at it. I was like, I don't give a fuck. I don't have time to watch movies. I don't want to watch that one. Blah, blah, blah. I got back, and I think it was like 2010 or 2011. I watched it, and I thought I'd watched the whole thing, right? But I got to the point where he takes the, which we'll get into, the M82, the M107, depending on what it was, rifle, the 50 caliber rifle, right? And it's like a scout sniper operation, and there's like all this shit going on, and it's just ridiculous. I think that's when I initially first stopped watching it, and I was like, fuck this, I'm done. So I was like, that was so bad because of my opinion of having just been there, right? And then I was like, it's so bad that I'm never going to watch this fucking thing again. And that's what I vowed. I was like, and I haven't since then. And so I watched the whole thing last night. It took me a while. But I had to take a couple breaks. But now watching it, I get it now because I've watched the whole thing. And my opinion's a lot more nuanced now. It's still not overwhelmingly positive. In fact, it's quite the fucking opposite. But I get it more of like why certain people liked it, even though we'll go into the box office numbers and the percentages and blah, 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 what they actually made, all that shit, which leads me to believe that not everybody liked it. Not as many people liked it as the amount of awards that it actually won. So we'll get into that. But it's just first impressions. It's just not great. It was just fucking abysmal on so many levels. We will give credit where credit's due because they got a couple things right. Again, cinematography, Nate, I agree. It was really good. It was like, it's a documentary style, but it's
cinematic at the same time. Yeah. There's
right.
Some really,
and that
really,
was really
good shots in it. Whether they're
and they got good shots.
Yeah,
I
mean,
it's just like they got good shots, and they but again, like Mike A said, and I think we've all touched on, is the writing was fucking terrible. The details, like, which we're about to get into, fucking terrible. Like, it's like, how did you do that little of research, or the people that were hired to advise you, or you just didn't listen to them? I don't know what the fuck happened. There was a massive disconnect either way in the amount of details in the technical part of it, like Henry said, that it's like, it's unforgivable.
Well, so I think part of this, though, Brian, you were saying that you felt that the way they talked didn't seem like how military would talk to each other. And I would say for regular military, yes. So like for Mike B or I, when we were in, that's no, that's not how you talk to each other. However, within the E.O.D. community, they actually do go by first name basis. They are a lot more casual behind closed doors. They do work a lot more like what special operations guys would work. So technically, they would be going by their first names or nickname basis. But there were some inconsistencies there, because I think he was calling Sanborn like Sergeant the entire time, right? Yep. But then they would just call him James.
So to touch on that, I didn't have a problem with the first names at all. I totally understand like the community. I just mean like you have banter. You have soldiers that have banter, you know, and you get. You guys know you were in. Everybody listens is in knows the stupid shit that happens in a fucking squad when you're together for so long, you know, and that's fine. It's just the actual conversations that they had were just so stupid, and it's just like they tried to get a gist of what soldiers were talking about, but not like the whole. Oh, we're gonna make a seed company. I'm gonna plant the seed, and you're gonna cut the grass. I get what they're trying to do, but it's just so fucking horribly written. It's terrible.
Yeah,
like
it's the writing.
It's that. It's not that they're a special unit that they use names. That's fine. Yeah. It's just like when they open their mouths and they sound like fucking donkeys.
I think it's like more of like the cadence and the subject matter is what you're trying to say, right, Brian?
Yeah, it just sounded fucking off and stupid.
Here's the thing, Brian, because you say, I get what they're doing. I don't get what they're doing. What the fuck was that conversation about grass all about in the first place?
Just stupid conversations that you have overseas about stupid fucking shit that you make up.
Yeah.
I mean...
Okay, but that doesn't...
Mike and Henry, when you guys were overseas, how many irrelevant, stupid fucking conversations did you have just to pass the time?
I can't count that high.
Exactly. Yep.
We do have a lot.
So
yeah.
they were going for that kind of vein where like stupid fucking whatever shit, but it's so stupid.
Okay.
It's like,
but come up with something better.
exactly.
Like
We're on the same page.
Right, that's the
Yeah,
writing.
it's
That's what Brian just said. Yeah.
Like
Yep.
I know what they're going for, but it's a horrible approach. And just
It
crash
seems
burn.
it seems like they've watched too many World War II era soldier movies, and they were trying to replicate the World War II style of talking, whereas nowadays soldiers. I mean, yeah,
Is it World War II movie style of talking?
right. But I mean,
The pusher.
I could see where you're coming from. I mean, and honestly, with the first and last name, that's honestly very minute, and it's not a a solid like you must go by first or last name basis. I mean, that's really beside the point. But I don't know on the if we were to, because we're going to get into the finer minute details, but if we were to look at it from the overall, it's obviously trying to make a statement about being addicted to war, being addicted to adrenaline. Those guys who go, they went through their 8th deployment and they're going on their 9th deployment. This never-ending war just continues to fuel that side of them, and they fail to function in a normal society. And I feel like they're trying to delve into that. Into the psyche of that. But I don't know. What do you think the final point that they were trying to make is? Just war is hell? Or?
Dude. Yeah, if I may. I thought that as well. I mean, at the beginning it says like, whatever, but something about combat addiction or something like that. And, there is definitely a story to tell about that. There is a movie from the 60s with Steve McQueen called The War Lover. And I don't know if any of you guys have seen it, but he plays a B-29 bomber in World War II. And, no, wait a minute. That's the wrong plane. It doesn't matter. But he plays a bomber in World War II, and like he gets off on it. Like he gets off on what he does. And his co-pilot is basically realizing that like this guy's fucked up because he like gets off on this sort of thing. So it touches on the whole arrogance, that you develop because of that and stuff like that. Way more interesting. I felt this movie, it like kind of stuck its toe in the water of that concept, but then it didn't really do anything with it. It was just like, man, look how badass this is. Like, and I thought that's a complete wrong way to do it. It should have been more about, if you want to go into how this addiction about this adrenaline stuff like that can happen. But I didn't feel like it did that. It was just like, look how fucking cool this is. I didn't like that. You got something
I
to
was
say?
gonna say, like, I think Henry has hit it on the head in the sense of like, I think the main focus is obviously from the title card in the beginning of the film, it states it states what you should be feeling as you watch this movie, like trying to take that message through the whole entire film. That's the whole point of a title card, is to take it from the start of the movie to the end of the movie. And I feel like that is the main driving point. However, I think someone took 3 different movies and smashed it into one, and took the best top scenes out of it and took the top 3 scenes and plot points of 3 to 4 different movies and what they wrote and smashed together to fill in the filler, because disabling bombs can be boring if you don't have a good thing to kind of hook people in who wouldn't be solely sold on that. And I feel like that I think this movie would have been a whole lot better if you had scrubbed, as much as I wanted to see Voldemort snipe, guys from a million miles away. It's like, I don't care about that. You could take that out. You could take the Jason Bourne aspect out. You could take the body harvesting thing out. You could, well, maybe, I don't know.
There are a lot of scenes in the movie that feel like deleted scenes.
I just want to say this, like, hearing you guys talk about this, it's like an anti-war movie made by Marvel Studios. It's like, yeah, guys, war's bad, really bad, but it's gonna be cool, but it's bad. It's like, it's like you said, Mike, they're putting their toe in the waters of it, but then they're just doing it from the wrong approach.
Because I feel like you could really hone in that message of war being addicting in that sense, that whole mentality of pulling the tension, releasing it in different ways from the disposal side only. And I feel like if they would have stuck with that subject, it would have been really, really profound.
Yeah.
Because then it's like, either each situation is getting worse or each situation is completely different from the other. Now, whether that is truthful or not, Henry, I guess that's your side to tell us whether that would be, something that could be possibly happen if those things are that different from each other, if they were that like that in the field, that kind of realm. I'm just going off of what I could guess, but like if I were to say like how to take that message and then use it with the same approach, that's what I would want to see, and probably how I would convey it, tightening up that tension and then releasing it in different ways, and or how do they get by through the scrap of their teeth, like there's whatever, it's like that kind of thing.
I mean, they're dealing with bomb techs. You don't need to go out of your way of creating a sniper scene or anything like that to create tension.
Right.
The very nature of the job itself is full of explosive tension.
Wait.
But the as the pressure is building in the film, right?
Right.
But the
You can't do two in a row, Henry.
You're really wrapping his whole thing together.
Ordinance jokes.
but the
Break out the slide whistle for that.
I think
What's the song? The Ordnance Corps? The man behind the man behind the man with a gun.
God, please do not mention that thing on to the public. Oh,
Oklahoma?
Yeah.
We can. Okay, so
You're
for,
good.
For
Yeah,
people out
you're
for
good.
people out there, the Ordnance Corps song is a very. Everybody hates it coming out
Go
of
to
Ordnance
YouTube right
Corps.
now.
Yeah,
Go to
yeah.
YouTube right and seriously.
Yeah.
It's so
Because
bad.
literally you're singing about being the man behind the gun. It's like, oh, bro, I know.
A chorus of guys
no,
are letting you
baby,
know that
I don't
you're
want to
Pog.
be behind.
That's what we call a human centipede.
Oh. Anyways, if I were to bring
That's the
this
woke
back
version.
to
Not good.
the original topic.
Not
Ugh.
good.
Sorry. I had
Anyway, Henry, what were you saying, man?
So you want to be the head of the Ordnance Corps, number one.
No. You do not want to be the head of the Ordnance Corps. Well, actually, one of my commanders became the chief of ordnance. But anyways, the human centipede really threw my thoughts.
Sorry.
Right there.
Yes.
Yes. Where was I before?
Talking about
the man behind the man with the gun.
No,
No,
shut the
before
hell
that.
Marvel
up.
Ordnance
Shut
song.
the hell up. No, taking the whole theme of
yes,
keeping out on
pressure.
ordnance, no
Yep.
snipers, no Jason Bourne, no
Right.
nothing. Yeah.
So I reached out to some of my old friends who were techs who left the field. You don't call them, you call them bomb disposal techs, and in short, just call them techs. Whether an officer, enlisted, whatever, they're a bomb tech. I talked to a few of my bomb tech friends who I was with in Afghanistan and in Germany, and interestingly enough, I mean, obviously they all hated the technical side. But the one scene with a cereal aisle was the scene that a lot of them could relate to. And that one scene was actually, the concept was good. I think it wasn't executed very well, because at the end of the day, you want to show and not tell, right? So if you rely on James having to tell his kid about that, you're not really showing. You're not entirely showing anyways. But that one scene, when I asked a lot of my bomb tech friends, that one scene was actually one of the more sad but realistic scenes that a lot of them face. Because
It resonates, yeah.
every day you go into work as a bomb tech, you're saving the world. And now you're gone, you're out of touch with your unit, and you're trying to pick which cereal to bring home. And it's one of those things that it's difficult. I mean, when you're talking about veterans having a difficult time assimilating, there's multiple different aspects. And that's one of the aspects, is that you lost that. It does become a drive. The drive to save the world does become a drive for you to move on and continue on. And so when you lose that one particular drive that you held on dearly with a group of men that you work, well, men and women that you worked with every single day. That's where it goes. And on the note of pressure, a lot of those scenes that they put into it, this is like taking multiple combat deployments, or maybe like the worst parts of an entire company's combat deployment in like the worst parts of Afghanistan or something, and shrinking it into 2 hours. So
Yeah.
with E.O.D, there's a lot of sitting around. It's like kind of like being a firefighter sometime. There's, you know, there are a few main lines of efforts, but, you know, as when we were in, you know, one was to do route clearance for patrols, so patrols don't get blown up, and some of that function was shared with the engineers. But then the E.O.D specific missions would then be responses, so responding to ID calls. So
yeah, that's the same when I was in Iraq. It was E.O.D. They, like, when we called them, they would take their sweet time, but we didn't know if it was because of them being on other calls or if they were just sitting in their chews and playing Xbox and like, fuck, I don't want, this is gonna be another milk run, just clean up another hand grenade or, you know, some shit that they found. And so, but no, we worked with them, and it was like they were busy. They got called out all. They're basically like they're basically like the equivalent of like emergency response, like kind of like EMS, police, fire, for, you know, combat arms and people that are out there needing certain things, and they go out there and they do their specific jobs, and a lot of them were fucking fearless. Is what I saw them as, was fearless, because what I was scared of, they were like, oh, this is what I do every day. You know, like when they would bring ordnance past us, and be like, oh yeah, this is the rocket that almost blew you up, and they're carrying it, and I'm like, okay, get the fuck away from me, like what are you doing? But it was just like, it was a different thing. And then, but they were really nice, like you were saying earlier, like a specialized group like that, like E.O.D, the techs, the SEALs, Special Forces, recon guys in the Marine Corps, they were all like super chill, super nice, level-headed guys, even though they were super busy and tired, exhausted, very down to earth. And then I was kind of thinking, and I was talking to my wife about this, like, you have to be like, if you have to have that kind of grounded calm in order to do a job like that, that's very stressful and very intricate and very precise. And so to relate this back to the serial scene, what I interpreted that as is, when you're in the military, you know this, Henry, like you have to make very few decisions per day. Like, really, when you look at it, compared to when you're in the civilian world, a lot of the decisions that you normally would make are made for you. And it's like, okay, well, I'll do this, I'll do that, you know? And so the way I interpreted that serial scene was not inaccurate at all, because it was this guy that has a very precise and intricate job that you have a procedure to follow. And if you deviate from that procedure, that can cost you and many other people your lives. So you have to follow that procedure and also improvise at the same time. So when you get back and you're looking at an aisle of cereal and you go, which one do I pick? It's like, well, this is not something that I'm familiar with, like making decisions on my own. It's like, you know what I mean? Like it's such a precise job that's kind of how I interpreted that. It could be right, it could be wrong.
I think even like right before that scene, like he asks his wife, like, where is it, or something like that, and like she doesn't answer. And he's like, God damn it, you know. And
to touch on,
go ahead,
just real quick, to touch on that. I mean, this movie, it's sad because I really didn't like the film, but when that came up, it really drove my attention. It has a lot of weight. Just that scene alone, like you can put that on YouTube or a clip, like it will get a few million views. It's just very powerful. It's very resonating. And I feel like if they did a good job with the movie, that would have been so much more, you know, powerful and like really wow, you know, because it's the best gem of the film in my opinion, like as it is. And it just sucks because it's been so much better. But yeah, I was looking at it from the viewpoint of like, you're in the military, you get cereal, here's your cereal. You know, again, limited options, you know. Now here come to America and it's like, here's an aisle. You know, it's just like, again, that in-country deployment versus commercialization.
Well, so I think I don't entirely agree with that, just me personally. It's because there, in my opinion, that one scene hit harder in a sense that every single day he was having to make a decision whether he wants to stay and cut 4 locks off of a civilian who has a family, strapped with C4 all over him on a timer, or if he needs to run away to save himself and make sure that his comrades around don't get blown up. That's his decision in country. And when you come back to America, your country is, do I want Captain Crunch or Special K? You know, in country, I would not give a shit if you served me Captain Crunch or Special K or an MRE if I needed.
That's kind of what I'm saying, but I just didn't phrase it right. I think my communication was like off. But like, I think we're all on the same page, because that's what I'm saying is like a decision like, do I get Captain Crunch? Always go with Lucky Charms, by the way. But
are you 12?
Do I get Captain Crunch? Oh, Lucky, fuck you. You
harp on Mike A about Starburst and you're eating Lucky Charms?
I don't eat Lucky Charms. I just said that's the best cereal.
Okay,
if I had to choose.
Sorry.
But yeah, but no, it's like that's what I was trying to get at, Henry. But like I just didn't word it correctly. Is the decisions you make in the military are so much different. Like a little anecdote, and then we can move on. Like when I graduated AIT from Fort Benning, right? We went to Cracker Barrel, right? We went to Walmart first. I changed out of my ACUs, and like we went to Cracker Barrel, and we sat down with my family, and I was looking at the menu and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck to get. Like, I don't know. No, this is a true story. Like, I don't know what the fuck to get. And I'm like, I looked at the waitress. I was like, can I get a steak with some biscuits and gravy? And she goes, yeah, do you want hash browns with that? And I'm like, I can get hash browns? And she's like, yeah. It just like, you know, but it didn't make sense to me. Like, because that were, again, like you said, like when they give you cereal in the military, it's like, okay, whatever, it's fine, it's food, you know? You don't have to make those kind of decisions. The decisions that you're making are a lot different. And you kind of get back into the world and you're like, this is so inconsequential that I don't know how to make this decision.
Right.
You know?
So one thing that's similar to this, have you guys ever heard of people who escaped totalitarian communist states? When they go to the West or something, like whether it's going climbing the Berlin Wall into West Berlin, or if it's escaping North Korea or escaping Soviet Russia, and they have a hard time. They have a hard time because now you have to do your own taxes. You have to figure out which grocery store to shop from. There's no, I mean, it's not the world of a bread line, going across, and your decisions are not for starvation or survival. Your choices are much less survival related. Than
that hits it on the head. Right there. That actually, what you just said makes total sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, they're a lot less survival related.
I think a lot of, it's a disappointment, right? Because you watch a movie and you come up to that scene. First of all, the scene feels like it could have been done so much better. But then, we're discussing right now, when you look back to it, all the scenes building up to it could have been so much more consequential into building up to that one single moment of standing in the cereal aisle. It's not that veterans cannot choose what cereal they want. It's a circumstances that leads up to that type of pressure, and then all of a sudden, it's gone. That's what creates that type of difficulty in assimilating. It's not necessarily that there's too many choices. So that was a moment to where I kind of got some clarity on why it was so disappointing, is because I felt like there was no build up to that one scene that could have also been executed perfectly if they took a different route.
If the writing was better, it's unfortunate that the movie sucks. That's it. Because that happens a lot sometimes. Sometimes I'll see a shitty ass movie, and there'll be one good thing. It's like, wow, that could have been done. That could have made it really good. But unfortunately, nothing could save it at that point.
A lot of movies die on the editing room floor as well, or they come out differently.
Fury.
I was about to say, Fury is a prime example of that, Henry. I you've probably seen it once or twice already, but my point is that if you look at the deleted scenes in Fury, it's a completely different movie. And I mean that, and I mean that as a much better movie. It builds in that missing character arc that you're missing. You know, it doesn't take away stormtrooper lasers, and it doesn't take away, you know, last stand, you know, in a field kind of thing. But you know, the thing is that it builds so much more character arc and so much development, and it gives so much character to the side characters that you're supposed to build a relationship when they die at the end. Spoilers. Is that, you know, it like, oh no, yeah. But like it does all that stuff for it. So like the fact that it's on the editing room floor, it didn't make the movie. It really does pull the movie down, and again, that comes from it dying in the editing room. And I feel like The Hurt Locker could have been, and not that that's the reason why. It's because there's too many, I've said before, there's too many plots, too many things, too many avenues of approach, too much stuff like that. Someone could then cut down all that and probably make a really good movie to be about an hour and 20 minutes of that same exact thing, possibly to even editing it to the point of what you're saying with the existing material that is there. And it, you know, again, that I always say, it's like, you know, movies can die or change the whole entire direction in the editing room. You know, they can completely change 180 to something that's either better or worse, you know.
So Nate,
Yeah.
I feel like right now we have been building up to a good point to tear down some of these scenes that we felt were a failure in pushing our emotions and our minds to that one cereal aisle. So I don't know how you guys want to approach this, which scene to go first, or chronologically, or how we want to do it.
Why don't you just start with something, the scene that stuck out, or stuck, I was going to say stood and stuck out at the same time, that stuck out to you the most as being the most egregious failure of a scene.
And we know it's here because this is the first time Mike B has typed in chat while watching it saying, I don't think I can finish this. This is terrible. Oh my God, I can't do it. I can't do it, guys. Help me. Help me now.
Well, I texted Henry last night and I was like, I don't know if I can. Yeah, it's
a little behind the scenes. We try not to talk about these until
this is the first time we actually ever did.
Yeah, we really try to hold in our thoughts. We might say 1-2 funny things, but like we hold it in. Last night was the first time ever where we broke the rule. It was so bad.
All four of us were sending each other like, this is terrible. I'm sending memes. I'm sending like video clips. Like
the meme where the guy blows up. I was like, make that me. I was like 20 minutes in. I was like, please.
I could hear Mike yelling from where I was.
Yeah, it was just frustrating. Away. But Henry, so you start out with what was the most egregiously shitty scene that stuck out to you that you're like, why? Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, so I think shall I go on one entire scene and then one small?
However you
do whatever you want. Whatever stuck out to you. Yeah.
So the shooting, the sniper scene for sure. I mean, I'm a long range shooter. That's what we publish a lot on. And I could mince into the distances and all that. But I could also caveat here that the M107, the 50 cal rifle, is actually on the E.O.Ds MTO and E. So it's an issued piece of equipment expressly that the E.O.D ushered into the U.S. military. People think that it's anti some type of a long range rifle. It's not. The Barrett is not intended to be a long range rifle on its initial adaptation, because it's for E.O.D to shoot API, armor piercing incendiary rounds, at IEDs and just blowing them up at distance, and that distance is like 200 meters.
So more like an anti-material rifle,
correct?
Instead of like a
And the rifles themselves are notorious for not having pinpoint accuracy, especially with the ammunition that's issued. So could he bushwhack a target at 800? Yeah, I mean that's well within the I think it was 800 meters, right?
Yeah, I think it was around there.
It's something. Yeah,
did he use meters or yards? Because if he used yards, I don't remember if he said meters or yards.
I was blacking out at that point, so I don't remember.
I think we were just bitching about it.
So
just shaking.
I was on my
I will
phone.
say this, though,
I was on my phone through that whole entire scene. That's when I check out. Every time I watch it, I just don't pay attention
How
to that scene. Yeah.
can you get sand and blood in a magazine of a firearm with a closed bolt, and the magazine is closed inside the
Also,
rifle?
would that
was the
fucking
question.
matter?
Just saying.
Would that
and it's a
fucking
50 cal too. It's like
Well,
fucking,
no. Let's dial back on this to begin with.
Sure.
The 50 cal.
Yes, this is
the Barrett. Yeah. The Barrett itself was not something that they pulled out of the E.O.D. truck. They pulled it.
Okay, I was literally just going to ask you that. I was like, whose rifle was that?
It was the British guys.
Yeah.
So
they were PMC or were they SAS or
whatever, executive outcomes, whomever it was. They're British, right? And so they have 800-meter target. They take contact. Someone has them on a 0, takes out one of their operators.
The henchman with the wrench.
And they all run to take cover while some guys are firing blindly with a 180 fan with an AK, and then another one jumps up on the M2. Mike, you were a gunner, right?
Not an M2, but I was a 240 gunner, yeah. But like, I know
have
what you're
you
going
ever
with
had
this.
any part of your training to where they say, all right, in order to cover your people, jump up on the turret and just fan 180 degrees on a traverse on your gun so you become a sniper's target, specifically to draw fire.
Your ammo.
You're not covering someone, you're drawing fire at that point because you are not moving on top of a freaking turret with the only gun that goes rup, 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 rup. I wonder where that's coming
really
from.
Really quick, before we even get into that little conversation, which I'll answer, I'm really glad that a PSL 54C is a lot more accurate in one shot than a fucking M82. I'm really glad. That was fun.
We actually filmed the PSL on our channel. I kind of blacked out. Was it a PSL? I didn't look at the magazines. The way you can tell is you look at the magazines. The SVD is a waffle pattern.
I thought I saw the X. I thought I saw the
and
X.
And a PSL has an X on the magazine.
I thought it was a PSL, but don't quote me on that.
Now,
I'm pretty sure I saw the X, but again, I was more like sighing and like going,
again,
muzzle brake difference.
But again, I blank out on that scene. I think it's a PSL because the muzzle brake on the Dragunov isn't it like bigger or weirder or different?
Yeah, but okay, so even say it's a fucking Dragunov, right? That's a DMR rifle. It's redundant. It's a DMR.
IMFDB will figure this out later.
I will say
we'll figure this out.
It can be done. It can be done, especially if they are how they were. They're like all clustered together, standing in the freaking open. But if you take...
I'm talking about the precise shot where the actual guy on the M82 gets one-shotted, no scope, basically. From
right.
yards.
I mean,
that where the guy shoots at the fucking goats.
I mean, can it be done? Yeah, especially. I mean, I'm not saying it cannot be done. I'm talking about the way they responded to it. I mean, that's not even how leg infantry would respond, much less special operations.
Exactly.
Mm.
And this is me not being an expert by any means, but wouldn't it the immediate contact be to immediately go into cover, which would be in that defilade where they were setting up? Wouldn't that be the initial like something gets hit, run straight to that?
Well, you identify distance and direction.
Right? Well, right, but like if it's contact, like you would just immediately go to there and then figure out distance and direction, correct?
Well, no, it's kind of at the same time. Like when I'm just talking from a leg infantry kind of perspective. When whoever sees or hears or can identify where they're coming, you would say as you're going, you say contact, which everybody should be getting down at that point anyway. You say contact, whatever your clock is, like, you say contact 12 o'clock or contact 3 o'clock, 800 meters, or, if you're really good, or you just throw out a number. Usually it's like 300 meters. So you can tell if it's farther away based on the report that you hear from the gunshot, blah, blah, blah. And you'd say contact 3 o'clock, 600 meters.
Right.
And as everybody's getting down, somebody's yelling that. That's how it usually goes.
And that's assuming.
So it all happens at once.
That's assuming that you know where it's coming from, which they didn't because it was one shot. And usually, so U.S. sniper doctrine is typically 2 shots is absolute max, and then you bug out. And typically, you don't want to take 2 shots without displacing.
Right.
So these guys taking their first shot, and the unfortunate Briton who took the shot is now dead.
Mm-hmm.
Their first react to contact, according to their drill, is to fire in all directions whilst running about and grabbing the Barrett. while
And
you
them-
have an
and-
M2.
Right.
Your
Stormship
M2 is a
troopers
better.
in Iraq.
and
Yeah, right.
them saying like, where is it coming from, and they say no idea. So why are you firing? Why are you wasting ammo?
Correct.
Well,
Well,
Correct.
you're basically, if you're firing, you're telling the target to fire at you, especially if
Right.
You're also wasting a shitload of precious ammo that you do not have a resupply for.
Well, he cleared the entire 50 cal belt before
Right.
he gets
He's got the one belt.
before he gets schwacked.
right.
So that's my because that would have been your best weapon to respond if it's 800 meters. You're talking about that outpacing all your M4s and AKs that you have. So the two rifles that could range it that we saw would have been the 50 BMG M2 heavy machine gun, or the Barrett, which between the two, you're much better at. You have a much better chance at holding some heads down with a 50, and then either you maneuver on or you break contact.
or
and
identify
especially-
identify the location and then obliterate that stone house.
Right.
Right. Well, that's what I was just gonna say. Is like a random, it looked like a fucking well house or some shit out in the middle of the desert. Which weird. Why are they hiding there? Like that's the most conspicuous location ever. But anyway, we'll go with
Okay.
Like a turd on a Humvee,
yeah.
you know?
But
that M2 can put down enough rounds in a couple bursts to actually cave most of that building in and then deny them cover.
right. So if you think of it this way, one of them was more concerned about shooting the two high value targets so he could collect the 500k reward.
Yeah.
And so he does that, and then the next thing they do, they tell, was he actually labeled a sniper in the unit? The one who pulls the 50
Nope.
out?
We never
You never know.
we never ever.
So he sets
that,
up the 50 with I believe his bipods were extended too, which is not
All the way.
not a
Fully
great-
extended, and he was having trouble with it.
and he was not establishing a third point of contact to get a solid hold on the target. And I still don't think they
He was
knew
free
the distance
floating,
and
you
direction.
know?
Yeah.
That's how you get the
Yeah.
best shooting. You free float
So-
everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
So EOD. So then at that point, they take the shooter out, and then they start working their way, and then the EOD volunteers their own services to the presumably PMCs or British SAS or whomever.
yeah. Yeah.
Can I ask something when it comes to that? Because like when that popped up, I was like, "Are these guys trained for this?"
They
Like,
are.
Why are
They are qualified on the M107. Yes, EOD is qualified on the
Okay.
M107, but their range only shoots at 200-meter ranges because that's the doctrine
Right.
of how they deploy that particular weapon system.
Very, very, very important point to say that, because no, they're not trained quote
long
unquote
range.
snipers.
right?
Here's the thing, like I was talking to my wife last night, and I was like, the thing that people don't understand is, yeah, EOD is a tough job. It's an elite job. It's an elite position, right? I would consider it elite. So as being a ranger, you are trained in a set of, I mean, we're going to go Taken here, but like you're trained in a very specific and important set of skills that when called upon, you perform. That's basically the macro level of it. I am not trained as an EOD tech, okay? EOD is not trained as infantry, okay? That's why you have to have a perimeter set up around EOD from some sort of armed combat arms group. Usually, ideally, you would want to have a perimeter set up where the EOD guys are going to be protected if shit goes down, if they start shooting at them. EOD is not trained in infantry tactics. They're not trained for that. They're trained to identify and disable certain pieces of ordnance made in a certain fashion, IEDs. We can get into all that shit, but like their skill set is very different, and it's nothing better or worse. Like everybody has to work together. Like you don't have a company where everybody does the same exact job in the company, or you wouldn't have a company.
Well,
Everybody has to have their own specialty, and they cannot, really quick, and then I'll finish it up. From what I've seen and what I know is they cannot afford to take the time to learn how to clear rooms, do all that shit, whatever, while learning about the intricate shit that they have to know in order to survive. Because EOD school is very intensive, very long, from what I understand. And it's like, so that's why ideally they'd have other guys providing security and doing that shit if things popped off while they were on a site.
Well, this was it was for 2004. when we were getting into the
Yeah.
combined arms concept. So you were running what you call brigade combat teams, and you had basically a mesh of different units making up a combat team, much like you would if you had a special operations team. You know, you had your combo sergeant, you had your explosive sergeant, you had your your weapons NCO, and you had your team commander in the special operations and special forces side. Same concept, but just at a much more macro scale. You typically, if you saw E.O.D. respond to stuff, they'd be escorted by like QRF or something like that if they're running response, or before an operation, you could request E.O.D. assets and have them park themselves within a secure location, and you would still provide security for them. So
That's what I was saying. Yeah.
So they're not. They know how to use heavy machine guns. Yes, they know how to use the 50 cal, the Barrett. Yes, but that's most certainly not the way they typically use the 50 for their doctrine. So it's not necessarily that it could not happen. If it were a life or death situation, of course they could pick up the 50 and start returning fire at a distance target.
Of course.
But is it feasible? Is the likelihood high? Is the biggest question. And
that's kind of what. Let's get into this really quick, because this is going to bring up my next kind of thing that goes along with this scene, and it's a common theme throughout the entire film. Is what you just said totally supports what I'm about to kind of shit on. Is E.O.D. again being very specialized, having had a shitload of training. Not a lot of these guys, cost a lot of money. Their lives are worth quite a lot, right? Their training is worth quite a lot. When the fuck would you ever see an E.O.D. team of 2 to 3 guys rolling around in a Humvee by themselves through the fucking desert, through a not friendly area, and then just finding these mercs or these SAS guys in the middle of the desert, and then just, we'll assist you?
There's one place. It's called Fort Irwin, California, where a lot of the training takes place. So that's the only place I can think of.
Yes. Great answer, dude. Great. Yes. Okay, dude. So, but in a fucking combat zone in Iraq or Afghanistan or wherever the hell else we decide to meddle, when the fuck are you going to see a single gun truck with only E.O.D. techs going fucking rogue and just doing their own thing?
Yeah, I'm shaking my head right now. You typically right, because that's a really high level asset. That's an expensive asset.
Right. That's what I was saying. It's like people I guess don't also understand that. Like, the more trained you are, the more protected you are. Like in most cases, you know what I'm saying? Like, the more valuable you are in the military, the more they're going to try to reduce the amount of danger possible. Even with SEALs, even with fucking JSOC, you know, all those guys, they try to mitigate the amount of risk, because it's like these guys have got so much time, so much effort, so much money put into them. And they've, you know, again, their skills, you don't just learn that shit overnight. It takes forever. It takes years sometimes.
I think one good way of explaining this is, you guys ever play those strategy games like StarCraft or Company of Heroes?
We need more minerals.
Age of Empires. Yep.
Yeah, if you require more minerals, if you require more manpower to generate a unit, you're not just gonna like send them up on a drop ship and just like drop one of your elite units by themselves on the other side.
No,
unless you're really that good and you're just like trying to troll someone. But that's typically not a sane approach. And in real life, it's very much the same way. It takes a lot of resources to train this small unit that you actually have a use for overseas. I mean, that's who you task for route clearance, or if your base takes IDF, indirect fire.
IDF, yeah.
You need E.O.D. to go clear before you could, unlock the base. So,
yeah, that's what happened with us a lot. Like, it was a lot of IDF, and they showed up and they did that, and it was like, cool. They're very special, but they also came with an entourage. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So if we want to get into sort of the more technical side and not just like shooting and actual like EOD stuff, again, you know, I work closely around EOD enough to understand a lot of things they do and know the equipment that they use. But one scene that I have had questions, I think Nate, you brought it up earlier, when that one scene, the classic hook scene for the entire movie, where he just grabs the det cord and pulls
the lotus pull.
Like 8 of those 152s. There's supposed to be 152s out of the ground by the det cord.
I was like,
okay. Technically, if you were to transport artillery projectiles, that's sort of how you do. So you have a little cap that screws into the front, and then it has a loop, a metal
eyelet,
a steel eyelet, and then you use something to hook it up, and that's how you transport them. So technically, that's how you transport them. But those things are freaking heavy. Each, you know, even without anything on it. That's not what I'm getting at, though. That's not what I'm getting at. You know, like so whether it's feasible to pull it, you know, whether the tension of the det cord is enough, and whether the tarot had crimped the blasting cap enough for it to hold. That's not what I'm getting at. So if you were to what we call daisy chain these things, so basically you're wiring multiple units to explode at once. You're setting up sort of a trap, right? Why would you put 8 in the middle of the road for no apparent reason? Like, what are you trying to get? Is this where Godzilla's going to step and then they're trying to blow his leg off?
They want to atomize a tank.
Because I'll say
Mothra
this.
is the bigger threat, actually.
It's not easy. It's not easy. Like, think of it from the bomb maker's perspective. To get one of these 152 Projos buried overnight in an urban freaking environment with patrols coming across is difficult.
Not going to happen.
Is difficult. One is difficult enough. Why would you put 8 there? Why would you take the time to bury 8 in one location? Now
and arrange them in that
far out
too,
from each other, where you could just stack them like cordwood under something else.
Well, so what I was getting at is one of the ways for them to set up IEDs back then was to daisy chain them and string them longside on a route. So that way you would get an entire convoy as it passed through, instead of just one cluster of, you know, shells that's easy for some one guy who never skips leg day to just, you know, bench and pull up on
pick up, pull them
right?
there. Yeah.
So I guess that's, to me, that's I don't know if I'm reading into this scene too much. The cinematography is beautiful. The scene is absolutely gorgeous. The way the colors, the light played on it, the dust coming up, and then the shells like emerging. Like, wow, the dramatic scene as it was visually phenomenal, but it made zero logical sense. Like,
well, that is the constant battle that filmmakers have with history or with depicting real situations like this. And it's that, you know, and the reason why that's laid out in that star pattern like we're talking about is not because it logically makes sense. It's because the director said that is going to be an awesome shot of him revealing those as he pulls them up. You know, that's what they're thinking. Honestly, they're throwing logic out the window to make a really cool shot.
Right.
And, you know, and also when it comes to a lot of this other stuff, like we were talking about the sniper scene, to me, I was like, when that scene popped up, I was like, this is a checklist scene. And what I mean by checklist scene is that, you know, movie genres have checklists in them. And when it comes to like a war movie, you have to have a sniper scene. There's always a sniper scene in every fucking war movie. So it's like, that's what I see as that. It's like, well, this is a war movie. We got to have a sniper scene. Write a sniper scene into the movie. That's all it came across.
But you could have a better sniper scene that makes more sense. You have snipers pulling perimeter security to cover EOD to do work. You know?
Well, that's no, Henry, exactly. Like that's someone was saying about last night with his wife is like, yeah, talking about the security that's around EOD, usually, ideally. Every time I saw it, there was an entourage, but like, yeah, you're gonna have Overwatch. You're gonna have guys up there with M40s, M24s, M82s, M107, whatever the fuck. You're gonna have guys that are doing Overwatch to protect, and if there's some shit that's about to happen, they'll take care of it, right? That would have been so much more captivating and so much more enticing and realistic to have a bomb tech trying to figure out how exactly this was wired up, how many pieces of ordnance there were, if it was daisy chained and following the wires and all that shit, and taking their. Because here's the thing too: is like what I noticed in when they were actually quote unquote diffusing these bombs, like James Bond style, which is fucking stupid. It's like no EOD calls; they take forever. Like it's a very methodical process, and although they're working as fast as possible, they cannot rush it because that can cost themselves and other people lives. And so it's like, yeah, you have to have Overwatch. And those calls from a lot of my friends that have experienced that shit, like in Afghanistan and Iraq, it takes forever. And you're sitting there going, God damn it, when are they going to be done? You know? And that would have been more, you can still condense it into a film, but like that would have been more realistic and more captivating is like, oh, well, okay. They see that we cut onto their IED scheme, right? The main wire's been cut. We're trying to recover all the ordnance. Oh, the Overwatch. Oh shit, they're staging an ambush to try and kill these guys. Bam, they start taking them out. That would have been a good sniper scene where you've got Overwatch communicating with each other and going, hey, yep, bam, we got one. Why are you guys shooting? Okay, all that you know what I mean? Like, don't have to get in detail, but yeah, that would have been more enticing and realistic and believable than EOD techs or bomb techs themselves rolling rogue in the desert with 3 guys in a gun truck and then randomly pulling a fucking M107 out and becoming a scout sniper team.
They did not pull it out. They totally did a battlefield capture on that.
They took it from.
They were like, discount.
We're just doing this ourselves. Fuck you, British guys.
Hey, it's 1887 dated. It's an antique.
Well, it is a 50 cal. So.
Here's the thing.
457.
I think, I mean, if you really wanted to challenge yourself as a writer, because a lot of these war movies, another reason why they're so shitty is that they take the easy way to just make things, enticing for the general audience. But I think you could probably take this premise and make it one whole scene, make the movie one whole bomb diffusion event. Yeah. Like, I think you could don't have it be all this multiple fucking horse shit going on. Have the entire movie be about this one thing that they have to do and how meticulous and dangerous it is. 2 hours of it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. For everyone. And yeah, I agree. Like, that would have been a lot better. They just, like, I think Mike, you said this at the beginning. They tried to like 2 or 3 war films and just mash it into one and then have it be Iraq 2004, which also... they were not wearing fucking UCP en masse like that in 2005.
There were some glaring inaccuracies. Like he says, he's going to put me on YouTube. It's like YouTube wasn't around until 2005.
Now there was ACU.
There was a lot. There was a lot of things. There were a lot of things in this movie that are based in 2008 and 9 that are in 2004.
Exactly.
Gears of War, to be a gaming nerd. Gears of War was not released until 06. So, come on.
So
Gears of
War,
that's
it's amazing all the cultural things they got wrong. And it's like, we live in the age of the internet. Nobody thought of typing in 2009, when did YouTube come? Oh,
boomer!
Because there were other surfaces, there were other like video things that were out there that weren't as popular as YouTube, but it was still a thing. I mean, like, make it correct.
Yeah, it's just do that research.
I'm gonna get an EBAM's world,
So, sometimes I like when that's the case, you don't know what you don't know, right? I could even understand and accept some of that, but Mike B was talking about the meticulousness of an EOD tech, and that's something that really sort of irked me a little more about their portrayal of these guys being adrenaline junkies.
Yep.
This is what I've been waiting for.
That's simply not the EOD tech that I've worked with, I've known, and I worked with both Navy and Army EOD techs. The way they are, they call them problems. they don't call them bombs. They don't call them they call them IEDs, but they call them problems because to them they're trying to solve a problem. And so
Correct.
the way they think, they don't go back to their CHUs, the containerized housing unit.
Connex housing unit.
Yeah,
It's
Connex
Connex housing unit.
So basically, you live in a shipping container. They don't go back to their CHUs and start punching each other in the stomach for fun.
And drinking Johnny Walker Black Label.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't look. I've heard of plenty of stories about getting like illegal hooch overseas, which actually I don't know any EOD techs that would do it that frequently because they're usually on call every now and then.
And also not that obviously. Let's just get that out of the way.
You don't stagger home. You don't stagger back to your CHU drunk in the middle of the freaking fob.
Didn't Chris say something to that extent? He's like, "What? You catch me drinking? What do I want a whatever form?" He's like, "No, go like no."
Oh, yeah, do you want to get a field grade Article 15? And then,
he's like
extra duty
like,
for
hell
fucking
no.
months.
He's like, hell no, I won't deal with that. Yeah. So
well, it's just, and here's the thing too: is if you're combat arms, you're doing anything like that, you got a stressful job. You wouldn't want to be drunk during that. Like, I know in past wars that's happened and everything, and made that. But I've also talked to a lot of Vietnam vets that were like, yeah, I was stoned during my first couple engagements, my first firefights. And he was like, it was terrifying because I couldn't react. And then they stopped doing it after that because they were like, I was so scared that I was going to die because I was fucked up. And so, but anyway, that's kind of a difference.
The nature of the tech though, they're just not for some reason they made them out to be like, I don't know, the first Marine invasion force instead of what they actually are. Like on their fun time, you would actually more frequently find techs coming up with problems to challenge each other, or they would rig and hide pressure plates and stuff around where they live just to mess with each other. That's how they are. That's how they are. They don't go around punching each other for fun. They go around challenging each other and trying to come up with new puzzles because that's what they do.
They got
to become better at their job.
They're brainiacs.
Yeah, you're engaging your brain for your job. You're going to want to engage your brain on your free time to keep that brain up to date. You know, to say it plainly. Yeah,
it's also fun for them, right?
Well, it's fun.
We're on the same page. We're on the same page.
No, we're on the same page. It's you just said something that just made me kind of just think of something. Shut up.
That's why you hear that pain in his voice.
Marylanders don't do that.
Army snipers like to shoot on their free time.
Right.
Bomb techs like to make puzzles or problems to mess with each other.
Unfortunately, you just made Nate think, Henry, which is why you hear that pain in his voice.
Nate, tomorrow when you go down to edit the movie and you sit in your chair and there's a fucking airbag, underneath it under a pressure plate.
Yeah. I'll know Henry was here. Yeah. No, but like you kind of just jogged my thought process, which is what the grinding gears noise was in smoke. Is that it just you had said like they find it fun. I feel like the whole addiction to war thing mentality, that might be where they might have wanted to use that role as an example for the idea is that the writer could have been sitting there going, they find it fun, or they're doing all these things on the side, they find it fun, and I feel like someone who doesn't understand that culture would be like, well, they're addicted to almost dying. So therefore, that's a
really good point.
Well, the reality,
dude, that's really good.
But the reality doesn't support the narrative, unfortunately.
I agree.
But what Henry, what he's saying is because it just clicked with me, Nate, because it's probably they heard that when the guy was embedded with them and everything. And they kind of like have this mentality that it's fun, like it's constantly challenging, and everything. That the person that was observing that might have interpreted that in a way where it was like, oh, well, these guys are addicted to this, and then that might have, through the telephone game in production gotten mistranslated into, oh, these guys just love war.
It wasn't conceptualized. It was like, these guys are fucking really odd and I don't understand. I'm a viewer from afar and I'm not going to go the distance to understand.
Right. Yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way though, but like, does that make sense, Henry? What do you think?
I mean, to be honest though, like 2 weeks with EOD, you're probably sitting around half of those 2 weeks to begin with. Calls. And then the other half, you're sitting on site waiting for the EOD tech to run the robot to find nothing.
Right.
One thing,
But even the advisor on set, like because one of the advisors was an EOD tech. I can't remember if he was Army or Navy, but and the Air Force has some, but we worked with Navy guys for our EOD, but even still with that tech, like what he said could have been probably misinterpreted.
Yeah.
In
or
that
ignored.
sense, and that happens a lot. But like it's, so that makes sense, like to kind of why it might have been presented this way instead of
misunderstood culture spiraling, like you said, through the telephone game into this with no understanding, and EOD guy being like, yeah, we fucked around a country.
Well, the thing is too, you gotta remember, usually when it comes to writing stuff like this, the writer usually has an idea of what he wants to do before he even writes it. So probably before he even went to to spend 2 weeks with these guys, he already knew this is what the character is going to be like. This is what I want to show in the movie. Okay, that's cool what you say, but that doesn't go with what I want to do.
That makes sense.
I feel like that's more that may have been more so what happened is that they already made up their mind on what the character is going to be like, and upon further research, it didn't match up with the narrative. That's my gut feeling, because it just none of this matches up with the actual people that I've worked with, and I mean, it's unfortunate because there could have been a lot of embellishment from a different perspective. Again, pressure builds up a different way. It doesn't have to be punching each other in the gut. It doesn't have to be going out and shooting up someone with a Barrett.
Fuck.
I mean,
and also not going into a town and trying to find somebody that you think.
Okay, that's not a feel good article.
That's
15.
actually might be, if you want to bring that scene up.
That's the Jason Bourne.
How many times did you go over the wire by yourself?
That's the Jason Bourne prequel to his star as the replacement of Jason Bourne that only did one movie and then they never used it again.
No, so I will start this out by saying
by Marvel.
I was a guy that volunteered to go with us on our deployment from Minnesota in 2009. Literally did something similar on one of his deployments where he just kind of got out because he actually knew the gate guards, which is something that they didn't portray in this, and went out to the local town in Iraq and went to a whorehouse, went to a brothel. Came back, and then it was like nothing because he knew the gate guards and knew how to get back in and whatever. Also, the guy is literally a fucking psychopath. I mean, like, I'm not using that word lightly. I mean, this guy literally did not feel physical pain. Weird guy. So, out of everything that I've ever heard from everybody that I've talked to that's been to Iraq and Afghanistan, that whole scenario of going out to, just what I just said, going out to a whorehouse, you get caught with that, you're fucked. You're getting NJP'd out the ass. You might get a court-martial. Now, you put on a hoodie and you go into first of all, you take a worker on base, right? Which they have those. You take him hostage. You basically carjack his vehicle and tell him to drive. The gate guard's not looking at you. The gate guard's not going to even look in there and be like, all right, hey, we got to search your vehicle to make sure you're not taking fucking arms and shit out, which literally, even in 2004, would be happening, especially in 2004 would be happening.
Before the insurgency.
You search every fucking person and vehicle that's coming in or going out of your fucking gate. That's the job of a fucking gate guard and ECP, TCP, right?
I think in Bagram, it took like 4 or 8 hours for workers to go on or off base. Somewhere in between.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But like, because I know when we searched guys, when I was doing that for a while on my deployment, yeah, it was like, I don't give a shit if you're in a rush. Like, we're searching everything under, over, in your vehicle. We're accounting for everything you have on your fucking sheet that you say you're bringing in. And then when you come out, it's going to be the same process. Now, amplify that of a fucking gate guard at a fucking giant base in Baghdad. Because I think they said they were on Victory, right? Mm-hmm. Or was I just imagining it?
It's Victory.
Which is, I was within the Victory base complex 5 years later, but still same security applies. Like, so okay, he's carjacking this fucking worker, right? This guy that's allowed to be on there and sell shit. The gate guard's just gonna be like, yeah, go ahead, just wave him on through. No, So that's mistake number one. Really big fuck up. That would have just literally taken 2 minutes or 2 seconds to talk to an actual veteran of Iraq or Afghanistan to get that rectified. Anyway, so he goes into this fucking village, or he goes into Baghdad, basically, we'll just call it. I don't know what borough or what city he was in within Baghdad. So he goes in there, and then he just John Rambo's this shit with a hoodie on, with an M9. It's like, what are we doing? Like
that whole sequence, dude. I mean, that felt like a deleted scene to me because it didn't add up to anything. The whole plot where him trying to find out who did that to the kid, it didn't even lead to anything.
The kid's not even dead.
Well, and then what's funny is, like, my wife said last night, she goes, would a guy that detonated a fucking IED or set an IED, would he be standing around with a detonator in his hand or a cell phone in his hand, like 4 hours after the thing happened? And I'm like, no, he's long gone.
Yeah, Haji's making all his texts. He's staying right where he was on his jitterbug.
They blend in. So it's like, okay, what the fuck are... Yeah, that whole scene was... It pissed me off so much.
He actually wired the same phone that his wife needs to call him to go to the supermarket to buy stuff with. so he can't put the phone back away. Otherwise, he's in trouble.
Don't get the falafel.
I love falafel.
Dude,
I got mine. I got some cooking right now, actually. No joke.
Dude,
I have allergies, but halal bread is amazing. Oh my god.
Yeah, you just proved me wrong. I guess that could have happened. I guess.
Yeah. and we're back to the main point. Falafel. There we go. Yeah. I have a question, Henry, and I know you said it's not E.O.D, but I have a question for you particularly. Was it common to have literal countdown timers on a vest? Or is that Hollywood? Is that like legit 1920s? The bomb's gonna go off because the fuse is going down. Like, I've never known anything to be like a countdown timer like in Looney Tunes. Wouldn't it have just been like a guy sitting there going?
I'd say so. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it could have. Look, they're smart, right? I mean,
right.
You could stick a bunch of wires onto a watch and have the watch count down. The wires lead to nowhere just to mess with the tech, so he messes up, right? Because you don't know. You have to dissect it and look at the diagram itself. So it's a cat and mouse game when it comes to that. Well, one thing that I thought was interesting is that we went through an entire E.O.D movie without even seeing one TED dog, the tactical explosive detection dogs.
Oh,
those are actually everywhere whenever we had any type of E.O.D stuff. The MPs would run them a lot of the times.
Do you think they were there in 2004, like from the get-go?
I don't know. I mean, that's just my curiosity. I had a great experience working with TED dogs.
Oh yeah, because I saw them when I was there in 2009, but like that was 5 years after this takes place. Yeah. So I don't know.
But I mean, that's so with you, that's something. Okay, we could kind of segue back into. In the movie, when you watch them basically do a recon around any type of response. The first one, they ran the robot and meticulously looked around. That is correct. I've never heard of any techs that would just sort of rifle around stuff like James did. Just kind of dusting with your gloves on top of the IEDs, or trying to just like kick the trunk of a vehicle to pop it open with brute force.
Also, a vehicle that had just burned, but miraculously has no char marks and is not hot to the touch.
I've never.
He did do some things where he touched it.
They did do that a little bit.
I guess my point is, usually it's a lot more boring and meticulous because you don't know where some of the triggers could be set. And then during your recon process, it's not just cutting wires that you could do. A lot of these things are done or disabled with. Okay, so for one instance, there's one tool that you could use called the like a pan. It's called a pan disruptor. So like let's say you had a backpack and you X-ray the backpack, and you could X-ray it in the field, and you figure out that on certain parts of the circuitry, this is where the primary source of ignition for the battery is.
Right.
You could use what you call a pan disruptor and set it. It's like a tripod with a shotgun barrel, and it's a pneumatically actuated shot that you could load it with, I don't know, like sand or water or whatever you need. So it doesn't have a lot of impact beyond disrupting the problem itself, and you can use that to punch out a certain part of it. So the process is a lot more brainiac than the movie makes it out to be, from figuring out what's going on, not using dogs to figure out where, if there's like a secondary explosive around, or if they weren't using
I wanted to ask you something, Henry, because you kind of mentioned something just a little bit ago that I thought was interesting, which I wish they would have maybe shown as an aspect in this movie, because I've heard about these guys before. I saw a documentary once where they were talking about guys like this that defuse bombs, and they say that a lot of the time, like the guys who build the bombs, they will put like cell phones and like watches and stuff in them to make it that don't do anything, right, or like wires and stuff, but that it looks like it does. And is that like a common thing actually?
I don't have a first person view on these things. I know it's a thing. I don't know if it's a common thing. So I mean, that's just the bottom line. They're problem solvers by trade, the E.O.D. techs. And
that's the kind of shit that they have to worry about.
Right, yeah. And so that aspect just wasn't really there. You just see him go in and just lone cowboy it, rip out whatever he thinks it is. He doesn't do like a secondary sweep, or he doesn't figure out if there's a secondary charge.
Right, and really quick, Brian, can I just really quick, Brian? I just want to bring this up too because of what we're just talking about. Just really quick, what we're talking about right now. They also, in 2004, to my knowledge, did not have the Warlock or Rhino systems like that could disrupt electromagnetic fields to like their cell phone signal would not get through for remote detonation. Right. And so that's again why they're walking up on there really quick. It's like, well, you don't take that into consideration in the film. Not
you
like
have
in real life,
you have cell phone jammers afterwards. So basically,
yeah,
if you look at American vehicles, some of them have like this little flag thing in the front. And then some of them have these little antennas sticking out all over the place. Those are basically jammers to decrease the probability of being remotely triggering IDs.
But on the same token, before I say my thing, so it's a sniper conversation we had earlier, and how about first thing you do is direction and distance. This was also before the time where they had the shot trackers, and I don't know when they came out. I think like 12, 14, that range, like 10 years later, but where they actually, can detect the direction the shot came from. I think those are more of a fob thing too, but they did mount them on Humvees.
Yeah, they did it. No, they had them when I was there in 2009, but it was for artillery and mortars only. It wasn't for small arms fire.
I think by 15, 16, they were like, they could use it they had perfected it where it was small arms fire.
Right.
But again, something that was developed during the war that would have solved this problem. Or at least attempted to solve it.
You gotta go through 04 to get to that, though.
Oh yeah, obviously.
So yeah,
I mean, the whole thing. I think the biggest error, like you can have a lot of continuation errors, a lot of timeline errors like that. But at the core of it, if you're not portraying the subject that you're trying to talk about, if you're not portraying the E.O.D. tech, his mentality, the way he perceives life or anything, if you're not portraying that correctly, that is the essence. That's a core of the video, and I think that is a big downfall of it.
They failed completely, in my opinion. But yeah, go ahead, Brian.
You have just mentioned, Henry, in the last 90 minutes of this podcast has made me realize that this movie could have been so much fucking cooler if they had just made it minimalistic and kept it to one event and didn't make it, I really think that, like we were saying, they went into this with like, we're going to have Rambo as an E.O.D. And then when they couldn't make it work, they didn't give a shit. And then they did it anyway. I think it'd be really cool. Like you said, like have a watch that's not connected to anything. That's a great plot point for tension. Like have all this crazy shit, not snipery, all this, like what you're telling me about an E.O.D. lifestyle, the braininess and that. It's like, it's so much more fascinating, and it would be such a better film than Marvel Studios makes an anti-war movie.
So imagine if you made this film kind of like Full Metal Jacket. Half of it was going through training, and the other half was in the field. And you had the
Oh, yeah.
subject go through training, so you learn how the mentality is supposed to be, and you go to the field and you see things differently, and then you're wrestling with that. That could have been interesting.
Yeah,
Crossfading too between like this is what I was taught, and then oh my god, I wasn't taught to train for this.
Right.
You know, like the actual field the problem in the field versus the problem in the classroom.
Correct.
Yeah, Nate.
I think I had kind of alluded to that thought as well with earlier about the editing process of keeping it all on one theme and one idea. And I think kind of what you just said, like Brian and Henry, it's like, you know, going from training all the way to, you know, to the end and having the juxtapose of this is what you're going to deal with in training, and then this is what you're dealing with in reality. And then how is that different in the problem solving between the two stages of your life, the beginning and the end?
I think one GWAT era movie that did that exceedingly well. What's the one with Jake Gyllenhaal where he's a sniper?
Jarhead.
Actually,
yeah.
That's not
and
GWAT,
actually,
dude. That's Desert Storm.
actually,
yeah, you're right. Desert Storm, sorry.
Swafford, or not Swafford. The same guy.
That's
it's
Shooter.
the same.
That's
It's yeah. It's the same. It's the same. Yeah, that is Shooter. It's
Yeah,
the
Swafford
same.
that wrote. Yeah.
No. It's the same actor who's in this one. Is in Jarhead. Yeah. I can't remember the two characters' names, but
Oh, he's the guy with the glasses.
yeah,
in
he's the
Jarhead.
one that
Yeah,
Jake Gyllenhaal's going to shoot in the
Yeah.
face, and he's losing his
in
mind.
the face. Yeah, he's
Oh,
the
shit.
It's the same
he's
guy.
the specialist
yeah,
in this.
which always throws me off because it's like he was really good in Jarhead, and he's actually really good in this for what he's having to do. It's just like I feel like it's always misdirection with all the different avenues he's having to do. Like he's having to do someone who's loose, who's not enjoying his time there, obviously, and then doing this whole like back and forth on mental health and throwing that whole thing in there. And I feel like this movie, and this I'll throw into our next point real quick, is that because I feel like I want this to segue into that. I feel like this movie does a thing where it's taking all of Hollywood's interpretations of what they thought the Iraq War was and throwing it all into one movie. And I really think that comes from that. I think if you think of it like, and that might lead into, and I'm going to attach that with the award process later when we talk about that, but like that whole mentality, I really feel like it's Hollywood's attempt to understand the Iraq War and all the stuff that was happening in the Iraq War at that time. There's a lot of that feel of Hollywood trying to justify the Iraq War to their own mentality and how that's going to go about. And I feel like you see that struggle of all the things that the people who don't understand this to the core that we do are trying to understand it in the way that they normally what's the word I'm looking for? The interpretations of what they think it should be. And I think that's something that we see a lot in this film, like really badly.
I'm glad you brought up Jarhead because I wanted to actually just spend a couple minutes talking about kind of a comparison because Jarhead, if you guys remember, came out in like 2007, right?
2005, actually.
2004 or 5.
2005? Wow. Okay. Yeah. So that film was apparently not popular with people who hadn't been in the military, right? And they thought it was boring, blah, blah, blah. So The Hurt Locker comes out a couple years later, and people apparently loved it, and that's why there were a shitload of... Nate, really quick, can you pull up how many awards or what awards Jarhead actually got?
I'll do that for
while
you.
While I'm doing this? Because it's interesting to me because personally, I think Jarhead... I mean, every movie's got its flaws, but I think Jarhead kind of captured the emotion of not necessarily any soldier from any time, but somebody in Desert Storm or Desert Shield, Desert Storm. And the reason people didn't like it is because there was no action, And so, but that was fine with me, of course. And like, I'm sure it was with you guys because like there was more to it than the action. It was the mind fuck. And I think they were trying in The Hurt Locker to combine both action and the mind fuck. And the mind fuck thing, they got totally wrong because they didn't portray it at all. How it actually, like Henry was saying, like how it actually affects E.O.D. guys and like when they're doing their job, like how they act and blah, blah, blah. When they come home is a different story, but like, that's what I think. And Jarhead made a shitload more at the box office in its release. And
you mean not Jarhead, Hurt Locker made more.
Hurt Locker.
No. Check this out, Henry. Jarhead made more money in the box office than the Hurt Locker
I'm pulling
did.
it up right now. Hold on.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, Jamie, just pull it up. I'm telling you the other one. But but no, it's so what's interesting is Jarhead made more money and was apparently less popular, but it got more asses in seats, okay? And people talking about it. Because obviously when you release a film, the best way to get people to get asses in seats is to promote it and then also have people go, hey, did you see this? You should see this. Let's go see it. You know? The Hurt Locker was promoted and won all these fucking awards. And it seems like there were very much less asses in seats for this than there were for Jarhead. So, you know what I mean? Like it's kind of one of those comparisons. So yeah, go ahead.
Well, I have the list here. So Jarhead was nominated for 12 awards. It won 6.
Okay.
The Hurt Locker was nominated for 130 and won 125.
Okay. Okay. So here's my point.
The budget of Jarhead, or it's what it got in gross.
Yep.
Theatrical to performance was 96 million. The Hurt Locker was 49 million.
Yes. So okay. This is interesting because we were just talking about The Hurt Locker, the film, right? We're not going to do an analysis of Jarhead because that's for a different time. Why do those numbers not kind of make sense?
Could I theorize this?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think Jarhead appeals to the people more, and The Hurt Locker appeals to the artists more. So, The Hurt Locker, with its cinematography and the way it tells a story, and whatever effects they throw in there, appeals to the people making movies, but less so the people actually in the field or the people who are out here in America more. I'm guessing, because a lot of people you talk to dislike it, but a lot of people who like it are far removed from that type of that community or anyone within that realm who talks. So it won a lot of awards, but if you were to say how much it grossed, it sounds like it's half. If you were to put those into, and this is far down the assumption line, so this is not concrete. And
absolutely, yeah.
If you were to use the metric of dollars made, maybe that suggests that the people out there, the Joe Schmo, all of us in this room, liked watching it more and would recommend it to friends more, whereas people producing it or people far away or watching this like it's an Avengers movie, which there is an Avenger in there, would have been recommending it to that just pure action, mind-numbing crowd who's just making movies. I don't know. I mean, is that a potential case?
Yeah, well, that's why I asked the question. I don't know the answer.
There is an interesting phenomenon, which is that there are movies that when they come out, there are certain movies that when they come out, they are critically acclaimed and are really popular. And then right after they come out, no one likes them and everyone talks shit about them. You know, there's a lot of movies like that. For some reason, when they come out, they're big deals and critically acclaimed, but the audience reaction is completely different, or just, they don't age well or something like that. And I think maybe this might be one of those.
Well, some critics in the food industry will acclaim that some Michelin 5-star restaurant with a dish that's the size of a ping pong ball is amazing and everybody should have it. But your McDonald's drive-through is going to make more money because that's what people want and that's what people enjoy.
Well, but here's the thing, Henry, is people listen to these critics at first.
Right.
They'll listen to them because, again, my wife, she said she actually watched The Hurt Locker when it came out because she watched the films that were winning awards and critically acclaimed and everything like that. And then she got so bored with it that she stopped watching about halfway through and doesn't remember most of it. But that's what she said. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. That if people that you don't know with opinions from wherever the fuck they came from, if they spew their opinions out there, and they get these accreditations and all these awards and all this shit, people are going to watch that immediately and then they're going to realize, oh, this is dog shit. Versus some films are extremely, we'll take Idiocracy, we'll take, what was Mike Judge's other film? Office Space. When they came out, they were not promoted, they were not critically acclaimed, blah, 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 and they didn't do well initially when they came out, but they've developed a cult following after that because it's it's funny, it resonates with people, whatever. And so I think the Hurt Locker, like all these awards that it won, it was strictly from the hype. And like, why did the hype happen? I don't know. Could it be because there was a female director and at that time it was uncommon? Who knows? Like something like that. But like, it was, I'm just spitballing here. I don't know, but like, it's interesting to me to like, again, compare, and I'm glad you brought up Jarhead, Nate. I really appreciate that. It's interesting to see how the numbers line up with the actual reaction, kind of the social view of this film, because we've just been shitting on it. And like, we could go on for hours, I think, about different scenes and whatever. But like, it's just very interesting.
I got something to add on and just add more food for thought is that I got curious with kind of what we're talking about, and I went on to Rotten Tomatoes. Not that it's like the best best thing, but it gives a good idea of critics and audience members' reviews of certain things. So it lets you kind of get like a finger on the pulse of what people were thinking. We
looked at this last night.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the Hurt Locker is 97% on Tomato Meter, which is the critics meter, and then the audience score is 84%. That's on the Hurt Locker. Jarhead is 61% on the critics, and it's 68, and 68 for the audience thing. And they have very close to the same amount of reviews. Jarhead has 200 total of critic reviews. Hurt Locker has 289. So it's close enough. It's not like a huge juxtaposition. So, again, I think it comes down to, I want to kind of spin this off on you guys just a little bit as well, is that I see this, but then I also kind of try to look at it as in like I don't want to say pulp culture, but just of the time. I mentioned it earlier, but like, the whole kind of trying, the general public trying to come to terms with the Iraq War as a whole, and to try to justify a lot of the speculation, justify why we were there and why we were doing stuff. And I feel like you have the comparison. Let's use Jarhead as a comparison. It's Desert Storm. We knew why we were there. We knew why we were doing stuff. That isn't a question.
Did we?
Well, just roll with me.
I'm sorry.
Just roll with me.
I just had.
I know. Just roll with me.
I'm
Is
sorry.
that I feel like the reason why it got so much attention at awards. You have 130 nominations with 125 wins versus 12. Yet, Jarhead got a whole lot more in paying gross budget, gross overall payment, and Hurt Locker is less. But you have significantly more rewards and a critically acclaimed and all that stuff. It could be the bandwagon of awards, like how we mentioned before. How awards get more awards, that speed, that kind of steamroll into the next section over. I just look at this and I go, maybe the time was just perfect. The time it released, the whole trying to justify the Iraq War as a whole, and you throw all that into one thing. What do you get? You kind of get this perfect storm of best writer, best director, best cinematography, best everything, even though it may not be. So it's kind of like kind of go off of that.
I think that makes sense. I think timing is everything. When it comes to either making it or breaking it. And especially the time when it like I was saying, like some things they come out and it's like bam, huge success, critical acclaim and stuff like that, but then in the long run it's not favored as much. It is strange though, because like Generation Kill came out 2 years before this did, and no one gave a shit about that, but like this was, and in my opinion, Generation Kill is like amazing.
But you have to categorize that as in TV, which in the same time that was not a mainstream form of media to digest yet. We were not even close to digesting the amount of TV we are now as a society.
But not just TV, not just TV. That was it was HBO, wasn't it?
Yeah, HBO. Yeah,
so that's a separate.
Streaming.
That's a second gate that keeps Generation Kill from being mainstream.
HBO and only on channels, not digitally streaming at this point.
Oh yeah, you're correct. Yeah.
So we also have another gateway, is what Henry just said. You have the pay gate as well as the having to watch it on TV when it comes on TV. So you can't. Unfortunately, you can't compare it. I do agree with you, Mike. Is completely better, 100%. It's just you have to put it in the times as well.
I guess. No, I get that. Yeah.
Here's a thought. I'd like to pose then. With the current shifting landscape of how we consume media, Do you think movies that have more thoughtful research and more thoughtful plot lines would succeed better over movies that are just shoot 'em up? Or do you think it's going to be the same thing because the audience, by large, is just a group of people who just wants to see John McClane shoot up Nakatomi Plaza?
The second one. I personally would love to see the former.
Mm-hmm.
What is the general populace going to pick? They're going to pick the latter. Which
I don't know if I agree with that. I think the latter has been so oversaturated in the past, specifically like 10 years, the past decade, basically. So like 2012 on.
If you asked me in 5 more years, I would agree with you. But in current, like this moment and this time, what's going to take over the most amount? It's going to be the latter.
So you think this is the paradigm shift?
I do. Because we're at the oversaturation level. Marvel is a prime example of that. Just I know it's not the same as war movies, but just think of it. Like you're having that oversaturation of the same content over and over and over and over and over again. We're at the 40-year mark from the first Die Hard and the Lethal Weapons genres that are, going. We might be finally hitting that oversaturation of Fast and Furious and all that kind of stuff. We might finally be making that pinnacle to have the movie that's more historically correct and
just more emotionally in depth. I think
more just better mesh,
relatable, and
than
accurate.
Just boom boom boom
so,
check mark. We might actually finally be to that next point, but I don't know.
Just throwing my 2 cents. I mean, I think mainstream, the latter, art house, the former. Because if you look at films like The Witch or like the new concept of a 90-minute art house film, like being mainstream, that's really taking off. Like a very well documented, niche-y piece of history. But like a general history where like it's, a big thing, it's just way overdone and it just gets dumbed down into like something like Hacksaw Ridge. Like you have to take that World War II concept or the military concept and just make it into an entertainment thing like this. But you will get things like The Witch or whatever, or their small house project, like the Reveille, like we're working on. You'll get some good stuff, but as a whole,
okay, Nate wants to.
I real quick, it's just you had mentioned The Witch, Brian, and just to not make it too off subject, The Northman is a prime example of this. I feel like because even though it was advertised as more of an action movie to some people, and most people assumed it'd be more action. It's not to go into that, but it wasn't what that was. It hinted on bits. It became more of a retelling of a mythical story through Norse culture, and they really focus. Robert Egerton focuses really hard on detailed history detail within sets and placements mainly, and he does a fantastic job of that. Yet people don't like The Northman compared to the rest of his projects because it's not what they expected. And I feel like, again, I might kind of hone into my process. I think we're almost there, but we're just not there yet.
Right, and
to top the opposite of that. That's what I mean. To overtake that.
No, we're talking about that. So the time that Hurt Locker was released, like kind of getting back on that, is like you think that was just the right time, and that it just happened to get lucky, and we were trying to figure that out because 2009. I mean, the Iraq War was still going on. I mean, you were there in 2009 when this came out, so like it was still going on for sure. But it was something that was still misunderstood because it was only a few years long. Anyway. I did
see Henry had his hand up for a quick second though.
Oh, did he? Sorry, man. Go ahead.
If you want to finish your thought.
I was just gonna say, what the fuck was I gonna say?
Sorry.
I don't know. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No.
I had a brain shit.
All right. So I think what Mike B was trying to allude to is, do you think that the Hurt Locker was a success, as it were, due to the time it was deployed and the environment, the media consumption environment that was surrounding it? Which I'm wondering, because if you were to look at, let's say if there's a spectrum, it's either super lots of explosives and just unrealistic scenes that's pure entertainment, or historical accuracy, and you could succeed if you're on an extreme side of that. But rather, if you're trying to straddle the two, like the Hurt Locker was, nowadays it seems, and I don't know if that's the truth, nowadays it seems like the audience could, it's like you're getting it's like you go to McDonald's and you either have the fish burger or the Big Mac. You don't want the fish Mac. At that point, it's
Well,
it's
speak for
like
yourself, but hey.
it's disgusting if you go to fish Mac. But imagine that. So in this case, the Hurt Locker is trying to combine some of those action movie elements, just ramrod it into something that they have also elements of documenting a human psyche, kind of like the road that Jarhead wanted to go down on. And it's like the 40 cal of movies. It's like, it's like it's like the V6 monster truck. It's just lacking on both sides and not having the best of both worlds. And I'm wondering if the current environment just has even any room for something like that, that's trying to be a combination, fusion Vietnamese Italian restaurant. Like,
I would totally eat there, by
Bang
the way.
Bang?
Yeah.
I was just going to say, Henry, really quick tangent, really quick. Have you ever heard of a Bang Bang?
No.
So it was from a Louis C.K., you know who he is, right? And he had a show back in the day, and there was an episode where him and his brother in the show are like, yeah, we're going to exercise tomorrow and do all this shit, but tonight, bang, bang, right? So a bang, bang is where you go out to eat at a restaurant of a certain, say, well, in the example they used, so they went for Indian food, right?
Okay.
So they had a huge meal at an Indian restaurant, right? Excellent food, good shit. And then immediately after, you have to go to a different genre, a different type of food. So they chose Indian diner. So they went to a diner right after they had Indian food, and they had an entire big meal at a diner.
No, that's different though. You're not talking about a fusion. You're just talking about running a train.
Oh, no, I'm not. But it reminded me of it in my fucked up brain. I just have to go on a tangent once, and then we'll get back to it. I promise you.
What I'm talking about is putting.
I know what you're talking about. Fusion of food.
I'm talking about putting like butter curry chicken on cannolis.
Right. Now I know what fusion is.
Like,
yes.
that's nasty.
Make no mistake.
That is nasty. Yeah. Like, you're not going to get any of the Italian friends, nor are you going to get any of the Indian fans.
However, Indian then straight to diner food makes me want to hurl in my own chair right
now. No. So, but Henry, have you ever considered or even thought about doing something like a bang bang
with movies?
No. Like in real life. This is real life we're talking about right now.
I mean, I like food.
Oh no. See, that's
what's
where
your
you're wrong, my
perfect
friend.
bang?
Because Mike has done it.
Yeah, Mike.
I've attempted it. I didn't do it.
We went on a tangent.
Premiere of Reveille, we're doing a bang bang.
We went on a tangent on this about 5 episodes ago, and we came up with Thai hop, which is a Thai food and IHOP.
Huh.
And
Forgot Thai hog.
I love the reaction.
Yeah.
So
no, we don't like it
was,
either. That's why. But it sounded the least brutal than all of them. So yeah.
Spicy pancakes.
Yeah.
But I'll just finish up this really quick. So they were suggesting, different genres to each other, like, Indian diner, fucking Italian,
Mexican.
Yeah. And then he goes, barbecue IHOP. And he's like, oh God. Like if you eat barbecue, if you eat a whole meal at a barbecue joint, then you go to have a whole meal at IHOP, not going to be good. Anyway, I attempted it back in the day. It did not work out. I would not recommend it. I was just wondering if you were familiar with that or willing to try it. You said you were willing to try it. Someday we might have to try it.
I'd say, so, I mean, I wouldn't, you can't speak in absolutes, right? I mean, there may be some people, you may run into the chef who can make it happen. Like, I honestly think Tarantino is one of those,
Oh, no. I don't think you're getting the whole thing. Like, this is not fusion. This is going to one place, paying the bill, and then going to a different place, and then
Henry's trying to bring it back to the conversation.
I'm trying to bring it back to the conversation, Mike.
Oh, okay.
Like,
okay.
yes.
You keep blowing him off.
You keep derailing his segue to get us back on subject, and you're just like, no.
My bad, Henry.
If we wanted,
I fucked it up.
It's okay. No. If we want to talk about it on the topic of a bang bang, right? This happens. Okay, I have to phrase this very carefully about liking.
You can phrase it however
Bang
you
Bangs
want.
because
These are some pretty good sound bits.
Look,
you
we
know?
already
Sound
said human centipede. You can't really derail it any more than that.
Okay, so in the vein of a Bang Bang,
Yeah.
my wife and I watch movies together now. You see
there,
why
okay,
I need
good,
to phrase
good,
it carefully.
Good recover. Okay, yeah.
And in the vein of the Bravo Bravo, my wife, if we were to do a Bravo Bravo, typically starts.
You fucking nerd. You nerd.
Typically,
Okay, anyway.
would start with like a Hallmark movie, and then it would be my turn to hop into something like Star Wars or Band of Brothers or whatever, and she would be passed the fuck out. And so I would just end up being the person who takes the Bang Bang because I'm taking sloppy seconds on it. That's why.
I didn't.
I never thought about a
realize-
movie Bang Bang.
I was just saying that. Yeah, I was like a fucking
Rambo,
a film-
Legally Blonde 2.
Right. A film Bang Bang. That's something. Hey, that's
Oh my
actually a
God.
good relationship. If people are getting into a relationship, they're a couple months in, they're like, yeah, well,
Now,
I think it's gonna work
I've
out.
done that. It's called double feature.
Now, if you want to take this
No.
to a worse level, is to do a Bang Bang with two bad movies. So pick a horrible chick flick and add it with Hurt Locker, and
Yes. Yes.
Oh, what's the worst chick flick?
You go.
But okay, Henry, which one do you start with though? That's the question.
that's
Lead in or lead out?
That's the question.
You have
Or
to end it
build
on.
up.
You have to end it on the suicide vest.
or you just have two TVs
Freaky
playing on
Friday.
two sides. But
Well,
but
that's
no.
the thing is, I don't know what would put me to sleep faster: the Hurt Locker or a shitty rom-com chick
But-
flick.
I always like to
Bring
watch
it
The
on.
Boy in Striped Pajamas and Nemo together. Really,
so-
just, you know.
So
That's a good one.
So let's. I mean, that's.
Yeah, okay.
I think though, if recently I've been watching a lot of old Hong Kong movies, and
Yeah.
back, this was the heyday of Hong Kong movies, were the 1980s or so. Nate, you okay?
I'm not recovering from the
Killed
boy in
Nate.
striped
He's
pajamas to Nemo. Oh my god.
That's a little fucked. Yeah.
Okay, so
Well, I'm just trying to
let's
think of the
just
best
be honest.
Bravo Bravos, you know.
so if you
Sorry,
think of,
sorry,
anyway, yeah,
sorry,
so go
sorry.
ahead,
I
Henry.
thought
Yeah,
I'd
go ahead.
recover faster. I had to get all the air back in my lungs. Jesus. Oh.
no, that's all right. I mean, but what I was trying to get to was like back in the 80s and the 90s, there was a common theme to inject these really corny relationship bits into action movies. Like you have some pretty girl and you always have a really corny and stupid romantic. Think Top Gun.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
now it's
But
it's become,
I fly inverted. Okay, so.
right. But I mean now it's become like a hilarious thing. But could the Hurt Locker have been an attempt of that, but just using a different genre? So you're mixing in pseudo reality with entertainment, but
Yeah, well, that's exactly. I think that's exactly what it is. Like it's so
Look at the bad boy defusing bombs.
right.
right.
But that's
no, it is. That's what it. That's
Yeah.
what it is.
But that's
Mad
at the,
Mike in Afghanistan.
that's when when was so I think Saving Private Ryan was the one that really kicked off that realism
Yep.
war movie,
Mhm.
and that was what 98? Was it 98?
Yeah.
8. Yep. 98.
Yeah.
So this was 10 years after that. So it's seeing the success of
Yeah.
movies like Saving Private Ryan, right? And when was
Well, every war movie since then has tried to be Saving
Yeah.
Private Ryan.
so
Yep.
Black Hawk Down? When was that?
01.
That was 2000.
Oh,
4, I
no.
think.
01.
Oh,
03. Maybe 03 or 01. Let me double
Right.
check.
I'm thinking.
Google it.
So I'm thinking movies like that had been the ones who went strong towards the realism side and seen success. And so
And even
Yeah.
shows like Generation Kill,
Mhm.
you know, and everything else of
Band of
the early
Brothers.
aughts.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
2001.
It
So
was 2000. It was 2001, by the way. Black Hawk.
so I'm
Black Hawk
wondering,
Down was 2001.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if you look back at it and you look at the film writing, you look at the elements that are jammed into it. I'm wondering if it was a film and the low budget nature of it. I'm wondering if it was a film that was made for it to just be successful for the sake of
Yeah,
being
they
successful.
just pumped it out and they expected if it's like a formula. It's like you were talking about McDonald's. if we put this and this and this and this into there, we'll be successful.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what you're saying, is it's just like a
Right.
formula of like, we know what's successful in the past. Let's just put that into this and then we're good.
Right, but at the end of the day, I think, Nate, you were the one who was talking about the checklist. Or was it the checklist? What was the phrase that you called
Mike.
it?
I think
That was
I
Mike.
I'd referenced it, but Mike had, I think
That was
originally
Mike,
stated
yeah.
it,
Was it the checklist that you called it?
Yeah, it's all of the things, like, because like your genres of movies, you have to have different things in them, and the war movie checklist. One of the biggest ones, you got to have a sniper
Right.
scene.
So if you, that's interesting, because Saving Private Ryan does have a sniper scene, but they do have a sniper
it does.
organically walking with them.
Worst sniper ever.
That's
the end scene. Yeah.
No. The bell tower scene in Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah, he misses every shot for the guy running like 100 meters
yeah.
below him.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
I took the
that
scope
one,
off
yeah.
and it's not re-zeroed, but anyway.
That was one thing when I saw Hacksaw Ridge, and like there's a part with the helmet, and it's like, they're gonna put the fucking sniper scene in this movie, like, fuck you. And then like in Fury, the same thing, the German snipers crawling up. It's like, fuck you, you're gonna put the obligatory sniper scene in this movie? Like,
yeah,
goddamn.
I think that one sniper scene the Saving Private Ryan. When I was a kid, I watched Saving Private Ryan, and I actually watched it in the cinema with the sound.
Ooh,
and
your
everything.
parents
Oh,
are.
it's really nice.
Wow. What's that?
I know, right? Wow, that's blood.
You went to a place to watch a movie? Why didn't you watch it on your TV?
So I remember seeing. You remember how Jackson, was it Jackson?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jackson.
He's like 400 yards, 400 yards, maybe a shade under, and then sneaks up to behind the rebel pile, and then somehow pulls out the other part of the scope to increase magnification, I'm guessing.
The scope they only use in the Pacific, the unitard.
Right. And that's one thing I'd never realized it was a flub until later on in life, when I was really getting into the vintage snipers. Because I thought, hey, I mean, that makes sense. He pulls out a part of the sniper scope and increases the performance, but usually you don't travel with that. I thought that was a thing until later on, and I read about it. But somehow that movie is far more well loved than the some of the errors that you see that the E.O.D. tech makes in the Hurt Locker. And one element I'm wondering if it's also because we don't have that many World War II veterans looking back at it and getting upset at some of these things, some of these errors that were faced. And would it also have a huge ding on it that in fact,
Well, with that,
we are in the current era and there are real life E.O.D. techs that are looking at this, and it's like, I was literally there 2 weeks ago and we do not work like that.
For some contrast, sorry, Mike.
that's a good.
For the period, so World War II, you're saying that there's not a lot of World War II vets around, so that there's not as much of a, like, what the fuck is this, as it would have been. Sorry.
Yeah, no.
Well, so
More
just-
so, there weren't that many around, and they don't come out and yell at that and saying it's inaccurate as much as we would nowadays.
True, and I'll agree with you. But to give to contextualize historical equivalency or whatever, Sands of Iwo Jima came out in 1949. Republic Pictures, one of the really big post-war films, one of the first really big post-war films that kind of set the stage for things going on.
Mm-hmm.
And they invited the remaining flag holders there. Ira Hayes went, Bradley went, and I forget the name of the other guy,
Renee Gagnon.
Yeah, yep, from New Hampshire. And I watched a documentary about it, and they show the correspondence that went between these guys and their friends from the Corps.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, how's the movie? And they're all like, it's dog shit, it's fucking horrible, it's a joke. Like, these guys, when they were on the set of the film, they were laughing at how funny and stupid it was. So to give like a period thing, like, that's 1949. This is 4 years after the end of the war. And these Marines were making fun of it. And to the point where, like, when the movie came out, the Marines from the 5th and 4th Marine Division went to see it and were laughing at it because it was so stupid. In the Vietnam War, when Green Berets came out, the same thing happened. Somebody had the idea to show Green Berets in country in 1969. And fucking, it was so funny that guys loved it because it was like The Room to them. It's like, this is so fucking stupid and idiotic that like we're gonna make fun of it. So those two kind of like period examples of like media getting it totally wrong and guys reacting to it. So, and of course today too with the internet and more connection, you get people that can network and talk and really hate things. Not some guy that lives in Iowa who just went to the cinema and was like, I was on Iwo Jima, that didn't happen, and he tells his family and then it goes away. You know, so there's more of a residue.
Another thing to consider with that too is that, you know, like when Saving Private Ryan really launched the World War II genre, you know, and at that point, like, you know, veterans at that point would have been in their like, you know, 70s going into their 80s and stuff like that. And at that point too, it's like when you're that age, sometimes too, it's also like, I don't care anymore. That's, you know, like I'm not going to get hung up on so many inaccuracies. And I'm not saying that's everyone, but I'm saying that's probably another factor to factor into it.
Like I'll say this, and Mike Birch will laugh, but Henry, when you were in country, who was the manufacturer of your ACUs? You wore them every day.
America?
Well, no, there was a company that was paid by the Department of Defense to give that to you, and you wore it every day. So you're telling me that you don't know who made the uniform you wore?
Americans, my friends.
Were you really a soldier? So this idea of just like, again, you're a soldier, you get stuff, you use things, you're there, whatever, you know, you're there for a job. You don't give a fuck that, you know, nerdy things, blah, 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 like we do and then we see. So, you know, it's just the guys that were there don't always give a shit.
Right. Okay.
You know?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. I agree with you on that. But at the same time, my argument that the Hurt Locker is not amazing is more so that they had an opportunity of telling an E.O.D. tech story. They had the ending that would have told that E.O.D. tech story, but for some reason, in the inside, they didn't tell the E.O.D. tech's sort of meticulous mentality. They didn't show them how they actually work as a team. They didn't show any of those elements of E.O.D. techs.
Right.
And so I think there could have been so much that could have been done to build it up towards that ending that would have been really great for telling the story of an E.O.D. tech, but there was a massive lost opportunity there. But to your point, who's the audience? You know, it's
right.
There's only a small amount of people out there who are E.O.D. techs, and the movie did not. I in my opinion, I have had the privilege of being working close with and being friends with some of these men and women, and so to me, it bothers me more, I think, than some other critic out there who's writing a piece that would then project it towards whatever platform for it to be advertised. So,
no, for sure, it's really a missed opportunity. And like I was saying earlier, just from what you have mentioned in this podcast, like we could seriously make an incredible short, like, you know, or whatever. Like, there's so much. It could have been so much better, and they really dropped the ball, and they had everything going for them, but they wanted to shoehorn this fucking idea into something that doesn't make it work, and it shows.
And so now we're at the phase, Henry, where we go through IMFDB and we just kind of analyze the firearms that were used in the film.
Henry's face. What is...
That's a meme.
That's
have you seen IMF? You've seen IMFDB,
yeah, but
right?
why are they showing a 92S unless it was one of the Iraqis using it?
Oh, I know. Again, this is the Wikipedia of film firearms.
I'm familiar with IMFDB. Yeah.
No, but like what I'm saying is like, yeah, I should have said comma, pause for dramatic effect. But we found so much shit wrong with this. Like doing these analyses, it's fucking hilarious. Yeah, it's a 92S. Of course, I've got one sitting right there on the shelf, and that's a 92S. The mag release, great pistols, by the way. But it's got that's a 92S. Yep.
I mean, I'm okay. I'm okay with them using stuff like a 92S in stand-in for
it says
a 92.
if you're reading the paragraph, it says why toward the end.
Yeah, I was just reading.
Oh,
it.
sorry.
It says
yeah, I totally. It's like
acquiring
using
the 92 was a difficult task. He scoured local bars trying to find suitable pistols with no success. Finally, he found a Jordanian general who gave the producers the used 92.
Yeah, I think that's fine. It's sort of like back in the day when people used Star 9mm
Yeah.
in place of 1911s because they ran
Or Valmets for AKs. And
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, I totally understand that. Which, by the way, I specifically asked my buddies about carrying an M9 in a bomb suit, and they said it's situational dependent. But if he were responding, and let's say he was responding to a VBID, a vehicle-borne IED, and they shot the guy, but they don't know if he's truly dead, and he may have a dead man switch on him. He may pack an M9, which at that point you have two options. One, which you see in the movie, he packs it in his bomb vest. There's a little pouch around the chest area that you could stick it into. But if you were to lean one way or the other too much during any type of operation, the pistol could fall out, which is a massive pain to retrieve. It's like dropping soap in prison.
While we're on the subject, how hard is it to move in one of these suits?
I've never worn one. I've gone to hold it, and it's quite heavy. Yes, it's not easy. I mean, it's not like you're going out to Palm Beach for the weekend and sun tanning, of course. So it's not easy to move in the suit. But I actually never noticed that he wasn't using a 92 FS. Now, this scene, though, that we're showing right here is the one scene where there's a taxi driver that revved his engine up and broke through the perimeter of the soldiers and got all the way in front of the bomb tech, James. Was it James?
Yeah, it's James.
Yeah. And James pulls out an M9 in a very dramatic scene, a wide shot with him almost like a cowboy pulling out his pistol.
With smoke, I will say.
Yes, it's a beautiful, well-constructed scene, but highly unrealistic. If some guy revving his engine up, approaching the perimeter of a infantryman cordoning the area off, not just
you would hear three words. Light them up.
Yep. I mean,
there's a video from early on in Baghdad, like 0304, where this Marine checkpoint, this bus tries to drive through it. And it's a pretty famous video, and like a whole platoon of guys open up on it.
Right.
It doesn't make it very far.
Yeah. Well, this scene also, like, I get they're building tension, but I was just like, what the hell is this guy doing? Like, it never even says. Like, he just runs his car.
Yeah, that was a really weird scene. It didn't lead anywhere.
I feel like it's hitting that whole Hollywood perspective of the war, and like, for me personally, I feel like it's trying to show defiance in the fact that they don't want them there. And I think it's trying to build up that tension.
Yeah.
Do I think it's a dumbass ploy to do it this way? Yes. Do I think that's the tactic for the reason why this is happening? Yes.
There was just so much stuff where it's like, this is here to push the plot in a certain direction. And, it's just annoying. I hate that. It's like,
it went on for fucking ever, too. It's like, okay.
Yeah, disguise it in some way.
Also,
usually you get one or two of those in a film, but it's like...
go back up. So, really quick, Henry, the security... The security element that's dismounted right there by that gun truck.
The background,
it's way too late, man. I mean, come on.
Well, also,
I know water delivery soldiers who would do a better job at holding a security line than those guys.
Coast Guard sanitation's here. We got the job mopped up.
They'd be doing it better too. Like, this is so fucking unreal. I was bitching about that guy. Like, the mount, which we didn't touch on, which is fine. Like, the clearing the houses and everything, the buildings. It's not even worth my fucking rant. But like. They're pulling security. It's like, okay, you've got a potential fucking VBID, and you're bunched together like that 20 yards away from the fucking thing. No!
That honestly, dude, like, what would have actually been really, really a good thing to put in this scene is if, like, while he's walking, you see the car actually pulling up like that, and immediately they just start and just light it up, and the guy just, like, he's dead.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's what would actually happen.
But I'm saying that, in my opinion,
imagine if this scene was a little different. If he was an informant trying to tell them where the trigger man was, and he pulls up and gets lit up and tries to tell them where the trigger man was.
Well, the cool thing is, Henry, usually you tell the trigger guy and communicate how to approach the forces.
No. Just like, I'm just saying, there's more that
like,
it's a stupid scene to begin with.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm saying, like, I think a really more powerful way to do it would just be that while he's walking, that just happens on the outskirts of the perimeter.
Right.
It's just and he like notices
so
it.
like
he like notices it. Like,
he's
oh,
in
shit.
his zone and like everything's quiet. There's like blank
Right.
out. You only hear
Yeah.
the radio through the headset, and in the background there's all these guys right, and then like an explosion or whatever going on. Yeah, that would draw the scene because he's hyper focused on dealing with the IED at that point.
I mean, like 5 seconds. I mean, and it would show like shit. This is a big deal, and also like this place is dangerous. These guys don't fuck
Right.
around.
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yep.
I agree. I mean, there's so much more that could have been done with that scene. It's just weird.
The
Yeah,
whole
I
movie,
didn't
for sure.
like it.
there's just so much that's like
so much awkward shit.
yeah.
I love the 92
my
FS,
God.
by the way. I know it's not like the ones that were ragged to hell or not well loved, but I love mine. I absolutely love mine.
Well, just throwing that out there right here next to me.
I have a question, Henry,
So-
because you might know this, and even Mike B. Do you know is the Beretta 92 FS? Is that what's in Lethal Weapon or no? As
It's not an
Riggs' main
M9.
Beretta.
I mean,
It's not an
technically,
M9.
this should be an M9 and not a
Okay.
92 FS.
Right. I think in Lethal Weapon it was an
It's an
FS.
yeah,
I'm pretty
for
sure.
I really want one of
The-
these.
the
for
way-
some
the way
reason,
you
but-
look at it-
they're amazing.
Y-
They're great. M9s. Henry, what's the difference between the M9 and the FS? I actually used to know this, don't know it
The
anymore.
dust cover where the recoil spring is slightly
Mm.
slanted on the FS, I think. The M9 is a little straighter, and then the M9 also has reinforcement. There's if you take it apart, you'll see on the back in front of the trigger there's like a little hump that comes up. That's to prevent the slide from going straight back if the slide has a crack.
Oh, okay.
That was because of some SEALs shooting like submachine gun rated ammo and complaining that the slides would crack
Mm.
because one of them actually got injured, but he was shooting inappropriate ammunition for the pistol.
That's 90%.
Well, you see,
of
I was
those
doing the wrong
fucking
thing, and it's your
tests.
fault. So
Well, that's like the low number 03 that I've made videos on. Like, but anyway,
I mean, look, the patch is correct.
no, that's the thing is like I actually
Camo's
said
wrong.
that was. So we'll have to give credit where credit's due. That patch, yeah, because the Navy EOD guys, they also wore ACUs when I was there, and they also wore that EOD patch on both
and
shoulders.
just to put context to pictures, it's what's the guy's name? What's the character's name?
It says it right. Scroll down just a half a
Thank
step.
you.
There you go.
Sanborn.
Sanborn's uniform and
Which,
patch. There we go.
Yep. And
I
so
have-
that's an EOD patch. Yep.
So
we
EOD, I don't know how it was early war back then, but when I was working with in RC East with EOD, they typically got farmed out by Task Force Paladin, which is the consolidated RC is regional command. So that's the east side. There's an entire RC that's headquarters out of Bagram, and that one task force holds all the EOD assets for the region. I don't know if it's for the region or the entire theater, and they farm them out to different parts of the country. And when they get farmed out, they get attached to different units. So then when units request EOD, the EOD could temporarily get attached to the unit, but they don't entirely hold the EOD element. And that's because EOD elements are precious. And that's why EOD wears their own patch, is because they don't organically fall under a unit when they're deployed overseas.
Right. Yeah, and so this might have been okay. So actually, this little detail we could do more research later, obviously not right now. But like in 2004, A, they wouldn't have been wearing fucking ACUs, and B, we'll have to figure out when that patch actually came out because I know in 2009 they were wearing that patch, so it must have come out.
It's even pre-Velcro pouches too, isn't it? 04, 05. That's just regular BDUs or DCUs.
Oh, it's DCUs, yeah, DCUs.
But they
yep.
didn't have Velcro.
Well-
I'm saying. That
Well,
was-
no, God no. But they had
Stop mod
they
tops
ha-
did, but
no, they had this uniform in 2004. They started like kind of figuring out the cut of the uniform
yeah,
really quick, and then it was called the close combat uniform, and that was they had Velcro on it was DCU. It was Desert Camouflage Uniform, 3-color desert. But they would take and put the pockets up on the arms and on the pockets, and
it's like
some
what
of the pockets had
crewmen were
Velcro.
wearing, right? Early on.
No,
There's like a
this was
cut of
like
that,
this is
or-
a lot of JSOC guys and like SEALs and shit like that. And then it kind of got out to like I don't remember exactly what units, but it got out there and they were experimenting with this, and they were just like, we have to redesign the uniform, blah blah blah. We've already been working on that. But yeah, so in 2004 though, they're going to be wearing DCUs or some variation of that. They're
with
not going to be wearing
patches,
that.
not Velcro patches.
Sewn-on patches. Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
So
Glock
red.
19.
So
The British PMC.
I hate this.
Okay.
I hated this. Throw the
Yeah.
pistol away. Throw it on the ground. Why do you have it at one? Why are you cowboying one hand,
So,
pistoling it?
as far as the EOD task force that I was talking about,
Yep.
so Task Force Paladin, or CJTF, Combined Joint Task Force Paladin, was the ISAF Afghanistan element that I worked with. The counterpart for Iraq would have been Task Force Troy. So it's the in country, that's the theater's EOD command that farms the EOD elements out. I
didn't know that. I just worked with the guys, but yeah, I didn't know that. But that's interesting. Yeah, so they had a huge task force, and they would have been doing the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this fucking scene. Yeah, but anyway, Glock 19.
That whole
from one of
scene
the
is
PMCs.
such a freaking clusterfuck.
Okay, so the Mossberg 500. Okay, at least yeah,
It's kind of
so,
nice to see, to be honest. Something different than an M4.
Yeah, 500. Like we were issued those when I was there, and they were issued those.
He has a surefire handguard
from 2000.
Nice.
Yeah.
Does he have I like the what the fuck's the name in the military for it? The chem lights.
Yeah.
That's cool. He's got those. I don't know why you need them, but in his Molly here.
Oh well, yeah. He
Those
probably
are
they're just useful.
Those are
useful.
glow sticks. That's funny.
Yeah,
they're useful, but like I don't know, like unless you know you're going on something on the night, like
I like to see that though.
I mean,
cool to see
look,
shit stuffed in Molly.
breachers use chem lights because if you are clearing rooms, you use chem lights to mark rooms that you've cleared for
you drop them.
People to come in.
Yep.
But that was a gate guard though.
Yep, that was the gate.
I don't know. You never know. I mean, he could have.
Yeah,
you could have been off of a breaching.
He needed him to light up the whorehouse when he went there.
Yeah, that's why I'm not gonna shit on it too much. And yeah, I caught your line, Brian, but it was whatever. Okay, so I will comment on this. So it's not the M4A1. At that point, they'd have been using M4s. But anyway, they did actually use the M4, the 14.5-inch version, which most war films that cover GWAT, they'll use a 16-inch carbine because that's easier to find. But they actually in this film, from what I saw, used the 14.5-inch, which is what we were actually issuing.
Airsoft guns.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
props.
but they looked good. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So one thing I did see them, like if you roll down right there, Eldridge, the specialist. There's a few times when he was aiming his M68 CCO, the aim point, and it would be magnified. So
yes, I screamed about that. Yep.
Yeah, so I think that's most certainly the editors not understanding that that's a red dot non-magnified scope.
Yeah, it's zero power. It's just it's an optic that's very crystal clear and very good and precise, but it's no magnification whatsoever.
Again, it's having an editor that knows what is being used, in real life to be able to then fabricate the sights within it. And I feel like that is something that is also very important to have, is make sure you have an editor that knows that, hey, this continuity error is wrong because this wasn't here there, but it's also important to have somebody like, okay, that wouldn't work here. Let's change this up. Let's move this thing here. Let's do that.
Also, now that I'm looking at this, my opinion, Henry, what do you think? In my opinion, even though we didn't like the dust covers, like the flaps, whatever, we still had them on our 68s.
Yeah.
Like you would not ditch them like this because he has no dust covers on there.
He could have broken them off. I mean, there's a million.
Yeah, that too.
Look at that. It actually, I never noticed it until I saw this in the description. Those are not Colts. Those are LMTs, which the M4s of this era, they were all made by Colt. LMT was not providing the M4s at all. Because afterwards, FN took over the contract, but that was much later. They already took over the contract for the M16s at this point, but the M4s were still under the Colt exclusive contract.
Well, and FN, because what was funny is like when I was in basic in August of 2008, when I first got to Benning, we actually got fresh FNs from Columbia. I mean, fresh, brand new. And that's I think that was around the time that FN got the contract, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So FN makes a good rifle.
I love during the sniper scene when Eldridge he looks through to sees that guy with the goats on the railroad track, and instead of just shooting him once, he like rapid fires half his magazine
like this, like blah, 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 like from an angle to the side. That was so bad.
And he didn't hit any of the goats.
Yeah, it's pretty
It's somehow they
pinpoint
all-
accuracy.
I
Even
hate
though you
that
couldn't hit him with a fucking
all the
50.
rounds went dead set in the same hole several times.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah,
the real
shoot him
sniper. They should
17
give him
times
the
in the
barrel.
head. Yeah.
Okay, so
Well, I mean, Henry can do that shit
I didn't
all
realize
day.
it says
so.
that one of the contractors was holding an M4 with a Seymour. That's actually accurate. Back then, they like to use Seymour sights. Those are older single lens reflex sights instead of the aim points. So, I mean, fun fact: the Seymours were derived from competition shooting, which SF likes to look at what competition shooters use.
Yeah.
Interesting. Huh. I
Oh,
fucking
this-
hate that helmet cover so much.
Yeah.
Oh,
No.
I didn't realize he's got a pass gun on this too. Oh fuck.
No, he doesn't.
has a what?
Nope. That's a Mitch. Paz get like the
Oh,
old school Kevlar
no.
helmet.
No.
No, he's-
Sorry, I meant the vest. I meant his woodland vest he's wearing.
No, it's
Isn't
an
that
IBA.
fucking-
That's an
It is?
IBA.
Oh, okay.
Yep. No, and so the helmet cover,
But isn't it ACH
That's actually-
wrong for 04?
no, it's a Mitch. Technically at that point. Same cut and everything. It's a little bit thinner than the later ACH.
Okay. That's the
But
difference.
the chin straps are fucking. Go up, Nate. Go up to the next, or that one with the woodland shit. So his helmet cover is actually completely accurate for 2004. It would have been a reversible from woodland to DCU, right?
So he's the only correct helmet cover in the whole movie.
Well, that's it. But his chin strap's wrong. Those gray chin strap, or what I see as gray,
Yeah.
people call it foliage green. Those came around in like 2005 or 6-ish on the ACH. But the cover itself is fine, and the IBA with the woodland. That's actually
Yeah,
what my dad wore when I was.
I've
when he
seen
was
the
there.
woodland in
Yeah.
you know, what do you call it, country? But what do you call it, especially this early, but who else has a fucking carabiner on their helmet?
On the helmet.
On the cat eye band. That was another thing that I didn't understand really quick, and then we'll get back to the carabiner. Is a lot of these scenes you see the cat eyes being more on the side of their helmet. Henry, is there any fucking reason that you ever heard of to wear your cat eyes on the side of your
I
fucking
don't
cape
know.
pot?
I mean, if you weren't really on your thing, it could shift, I guess. But no.
I've
But
heard
it's
about turning them
consistently, like, to
over,
the
but
side
not
on
to
a
the
lot of
side.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like no, they're there for a reason, and if you don't want them to show, you just flip it underneath.
Do they
like,
if you scroll down, does it show their name and the battle roster number on their cat eyes on these?
He had his name here somewhere in some.
no,
on the
he's talking
actual-
about on the
Oh,
cat
on
eye
the cat
band.
eye? No, I never saw it on the helmet.
Go up for a second. Go up.
I think that's something that we started doing around 04-ish time frame. Like you would get these little tiny name tapes,
Yeah,
and you would
Yeah.
sew them onto your helmet
Uh,
band.
What's
But-
this right here?
That's probably
Yeah,
it. Yeah,
right there.
that's
Okay,
it.
yeah.
But like that also was a thing that you had to privately do. A lot of active duty guys do that because you have the tailor on post.
There's
forget
right
your-
there.
Us
I
na-
forget
Here, there
your
it is.
guard.
There it is, right there.
Yeah. Oh, I was a nasty girl for sure. Yeah, that's so. We could do it, but we just would have to like take time out of our training schedule to go on post and like
Yep.
get that done.
And
Yep.
that's actually
Yep.
awesome to do. Like in reality, like some guys would just write it with a Sharpie onto their cat eyes.
That's what I did.
but
yeah, that's what I did.
it's when you have a whole freaking platoon in a small place and you have 30 freaking helmets just mixed in, it is a massive pain to look for your helmet if you didn't have those name tapes on them.
Or duffel bags too,
Yep.
right? Here's a giant pile of green shit.
Yeah, that's why
I had a friend, he had
Yo.
the NYPD logo painted on the bottom of his
Yeah.
panel of his duffel bag so he could find it in a pile.
yeah.
Yeah, we had stenciled. We had our last four on there, and then our unit and everything. And so you just look for your last four on the bottom of your duffel bag. But as far as helmets, yeah, I just wrote mine. I still have my helmet here, my ACH. But like, I just wrote it on my band,
Mhm.
and I also painted or drew some shit on my cover. But a lot of the guys wrote it, but some of them actually got their names like little patch. It wasn't even like just kind of embroidered on there like that one, but like an actual patch that was sewn on. And then I also wrote my blood type on either side of my helmet.
Mhm.
So
Classic
Airsoft
army.
replica.
Pretty cheap.
oh yeah, that's definitely a fucking airsoft gun. Because like the optic, the ACOG is so far forward, or the wannabe ACOG.
Also, look
and
how
then-
like it's literally a guy hitting it with some steel wool to like
Well,
give it wear.
Yeah, to try and make
It's
it
a
look
black
like
matte
aged or
paint.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's painted
think-
black. Usually, also sometimes you'll see like the markings on it will be like filled in with white paint.
Yep. That's
right,
just
and like,
airsoft
where's your
stuff.
backup iron sight, dude? Like, you're gonna have that at that point. You're gonna
Mm-hmm.
have your fucking backup iron sight.
Your
Like,
CQBs?
so the A4, possibly airsoft replicas. Okay, let's see this. Who was using these?
Oh, just soldiers.
The-
yeah, I mean,
the
yeah,
That's
that's-
Colonel?
first team.
there was one with
Yeah, but that was you. Yeah,
it says one of them has a Seymour on it.
Yeah, I think it's this one,
Hmm.
maybe.
The colonels.
Yeah.
I like that character. I thought he was funny because I've definitely met officers.
Well, you're
that.
like the colonel who
Yeah.
comes up and goes like, "Oh, you're so amazing."
873. When he looks at people talking, it's like I've met pieces of shit like that, and it's like,
Yeah.
ugh.
It was, in my experience, doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but in my experience, that was a little bit over the
That was
top.
that's
It was
very over.
over.
It might have been.
I thought
Yeah.
that whole scene of he's not gonna make it, and then the shooting in the background. It's like, really.
It was fucking.
Really?
I mean,
Anyway,
it's
go
it's
ahead.
Lie.
not unfeasible. It's just I don't know if that I don't know. Why
I
it
know
was
what I know
necessary.
exactly what you're saying.
a little
Henry.
bit,
I
a
know
little
what-
bit too
yeah.
much cream on the
Yeah.
in the coffee kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's
I don't know
see.
that you one of these. And
That's not how an 05 is going to act usually. So,
So-
but anyway,
Mhm.
moving on.
Interesting that they said did it I guess they did have East German furniture on their rifles.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Yeah. I don't know about the East German AKs, but I know we sent a lot of Romanian AKs over to
That's what
Iraq.
I saw mostly
Yeah.
with the Iraqi guys, like the Wasser 1063s with the dong grip, and then
Yeah.
the underflow, the PM 63s with the reverse dong grip.
Right.
Yep.
Let's see. Oh, hold on. Homeboy has his rear sight power setting cranked up, huh?
Oh,
Yeah, right.
oh wow.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Rhodesia Power Hour.
All
He's
right.
definitely he's like at like fucking 9 or 10. He's at like 1,000 meters.
See, this is one of those things that I don't know what he's trying to accomplish. Like, so they get this long drawn out scene, and for listeners out there, we're talking about the one scene where the sniper scene where they're waiting for
Yeah.
something to happen, something magical to happen, and some of the goat herders lays down with a Kalashnikov and points his rifle at him, and then Eldridge asks if he should shoot or not, and then
Should I shoot this guy pointing a
yeah,
rifle?
and
at us?
James comes up with a very unhelpful solution of you whatever you want, which is horrible to tell a specialist.
Oh god.
So then we're looking at an image of said goat herder with a Kalashnikov with, I was jokingly saying, the power setting. The rear sight is cranked at a higher distance setting. So the leaf sights,
It's at about 9, yeah.
the leaf sights, the way they work, if you push them forward, it rides on a ramp and it raises the elevation. It raises the arc that you're arcing a projectile. And so he has it on a really high distance setting, it turns out. But I remembered in that scene, he couldn't have been more than maybe like 150 meters, 200 meters away from them. So if he were to do that, it would have shot all over their heads. But that one scene was unnecessary too. Like, why was he aiming his rifle at them for so long? Just
Here's the answer, Henry. Because when the movie starts, Eldridge didn't shoot the guy that set off the bomb that killed their team leader. So this is his redeeming moment. You
Yeah,
know?
He
It's
couldn't
like-
shoot through a piece of cloth in the wind.
I see.
You know.
Yeah.
so-
And that's why he's like, you do what you need to do, meaning like let him
Yeah.
choose to kill the guy.
Well,
Again,
While
it's
we're
the
on it-
writing taking over
Yeah.
and making it shitty.
while we're on it, I forgot to say this earlier, but oh my god, I hate again. Dialogue is horrible in this film. Fucking, there's the one scene where like I think the doctor asks, or Eldridge asks,
I fucking hate that
Mhm.
clock. I want to smash it with the sledgehammer.
so I'm gonna give it to Sean for his wedding gift.
Sean, it's coming to you, buddy. All right, go ahead.
All right, but anyway, yeah.
Anyway, now that you know the London Tower has said what's happening, so yeah, like somebody asked the kid or the medic or somebody, he's like, "Have you seen a body?" And he was like, "No." And I'm like, "You fucking saw your like team leader die in the first 5 minutes of the movie, and then like 90 minutes in, you're like, I've never seen a body." Like, what? Like again, that's a huge continuity error, and it's a huge fucking dialogue fuck up.
It's also unrealistic for E.O.D. from that era to have never seen a body.
Yeah,
Right.
You know? I've been here for 300 days and I've never seen a
Well,
body.
on that
No.
note, that doc,
No.
well, you're talking about that lieutenant colonel, right? The one who ends up going out the wire with him.
the major or whatever. Yeah,
The colonel, yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
the guy
what,
that blows.
what
well,
was
they call
The
him?
guy who's an idiot.
I don't know. I appreciate people from the medical field going into the military because they do take care of wounded soldiers and everything. But there are some instances when medcom officers, which they get direct promotions. So their promotions, they put them at a certain grade to match their pay outside of the military, and that's how they attract them into the military. And that's the only way they could equalize that pay to match what a surgeon would be making outside. But they send them through a very truncated, like 2-month school out in San Antonio at Fort Sam to become doctors and learn like drill and everything. And I mean, I still have a friend, one of my best friends I commissioned with, he broke both his legs before he went to flight school. So he was going to go do a medevac. He was going to pilot, to become a medevac pilot, but he broke both of his legs. And so MedServ had to put him somewhere before he healed and went to flight school. So they put him into Fort Sam to train those incoming doctors and teach them how to be soldiers. And there was this one guy coming in, and he was great story. He wanted to come in to serve with his son, and he was a surgeon. He was an accomplished surgeon at that point. And he was coming in as a fresh soldier as a lieutenant colonel. And so my friend, a second lieutenant, was teaching this group of captains, majors, and lieutenant colonels how to be officers, right? So this 105 lieutenant colonel comes up to him afterwards when they were talking and stands at parade rest, which means your hands are behind your back. That's how you stand in front of an NCO. My friend goes like, "Hey, sir, could you please not do that?" And the colonel goes like, "Oh, no, it's okay." Like, "No, sir, you're a colonel. I'm a lieutenant. If the sergeant major comes by, both of our asses are down. So please stop doing that, sir." "Oh, well, in that case, all right." So that's a kind of the caliber of officer that you're dealing with when you're talking about medical guys. The thing is, when that scene could have been embellished even more when he was coming in and Eldridge comes up and he gives Eldridge advice to enjoy Iraq, right? It could be fun. Enjoy Iraq. And Eldridge snaps back at him and said, "Oh, how much field time have you had?" That could have been drawn out even more, because he's entirely right. Some of those surgeons, they wear the rank, but they don't have that experience. It's not to say that they don't have an important job per se, but they may not have the understanding of what some E.O.D. tech is dealing with or wrestling with in his mental state. So I was a little disappointed that wasn't really, looked at even more. And instead they just made him into an idiot to where he walks out of the wire and starts talking to some locals like, they're selling him lamb meat for dinner, and then he gets blown up by an IED. I mean, that was a really brute way of telling a story about somebody not understanding what's going on outside of the wire. Yeah. The character development is entirely cut short, and it's a disappointment.
Yeah, he just comes up, he's like, "Can you please move?" And then they're like not understanding what he's saying.
It's I did like the scene when he blew up, because like it's filmed from the for this
I
reason,
did too, Brian,
because it's filmed from the Humvee. And you have a huge explosion, and if you look, the cat eyes, they go green. And I just thought that was interesting because it's daytime. And then you have like, what the fuck just happened?
It was a beautiful
that
scene.
Was just the cool. Yeah, I just like, again, it's just those little things, and who knows if that was planned, whatever. But it was just really cool to see like day turn to night, see that happen, and then go away.
That's to the point, the theme that we're talking about. There's so much potential to the movie. It's obvious that they knew what they were doing when it came to cinematography and trying to tell a story. They're just telling the wrong story, I feel like.
Yeah.
The wrong angle,
Yeah.
This would work a lot better for like a different type of soldier.
Yep.
I feel, Until they chose a Brainiac and tried to make him Rambo.
So
a modified Wasser side folder, nice.
I mean, that's also
Rail on top of the.
That's also somewhat accurate. The Brits like to use AKs every now and then. I mean, this is just weird. Like it's like they read stories about the SAS driving around in Jeeps in World War II too much, and they tried
LRTG
right
in Iraq,
and they try to pattern
the Rat Patrol.
Yeah, they try to pattern them after the Rat Patrol. and it just turns out weird.
Those Seymours are giving me real Arma hours. Like, fucking.
Okay,
early
so
aughts.
so now if you scroll down, look at that. We're now looking at the image of the Barrett and the initial quote unquote sniper, the British sniper that gets shot. And if you look at that, he has his bipods extended all the way.
He's literally a foot and a half off the ground. Wouldn't you want to be as low as possible?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Nate, who's the sniper here? Okay, bud.
Sorry.
No, it's definitely like, it doesn't matter if you're a sniper or not. Like, even the basic leg grunts, it's like you get as close to the ground as possible.
Or
And-
if you want the bipod fully extended, put it on the tier down of that ledge. Just something.
Right, and then
Yeah.
push into the ledge.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like it's like, yeah, I mean, what the fuck are we doing?
Better
here?
yet,
Yeah.
just fucking drag your dead buddy's friend or body over and use that as a rifle rest.
That's not
Throw
good
that on the
form.
ledge.
That's not
Oh.
that's not good form to drag your buddy and use him as cover.
Yeah,
I mean, he doesn't
have more
I
cover.
mean, he's not using it anymore, so
That's
Well,
true.
no, but that's how you get blood. That's how you get blood in your magazine on your rounds. That's
Oh,
how you get
that's
blood in
how
your,
it happened. Maybe that's the
Yeah.
deleted
Yeah.
scene where like
Yeah.
a gallon of blood and sand got poured into the enclosed rifle.
that was
somehow.
strange.
You
How,
know?
yeah.
No, it was on the magazine that they took off his body.
Yeah.
That's why it was like.
But they didn't.
Well,
even shoot,
it's
like,
still
at all.
it's not. That's not going to affect the fuck. Jesus Christ! Yeah.
The spring tension on a Barrett. Is
Yeah,
insane. Isn't it
exactly.
like 2 or 3 springs coiled together and.
Let's see.
No, but I'm saying that the malfunction part happened when they got a new magazine.
Mhm.
That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's
Oh.
not stupid.
Oh, I know, but
One point to this. You remember in this one sniper scene, he brings out like a juice pack, like a Capri Sun or something like that.
yeah.
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 Capri Sun, yeah.
So of all of the so did they run out of water in their camelbacks or something? I forgot.
Yes,
Something.
I think
Yeah.
I think they had
guess.
mentioned that they are dry.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah, because the one guy sucked it dry to spit into the magazine to clean off the blood. And,
right,
yeah.
right. So now you're doing a sniper duel, and you bring out the one drink that is more reflective than anything around, and you put it directly
about
in
that.
front of
I
the
just
shooter.
forgot about that. Yeah.
So you put the most reflective item that you have in the middle of the desert, mind you, in front of
let me get you out of the sun with this space blanket. It's going to help you with the cover.
unless their idea was to, hey, let's blind this person with a Capri Sun. Yeah, I don't think that was very well thought. And it's just strange that they pulled out a Capri Sun of everything.
Really quick, too, I
remember
forgot
next
to
sniper
mention
duel?
this. Hold on, I forgot to mention this.
That's fine.
Stay on that picture really quick. So, Henry,
The muzzle brake.
how many Americans, EOD, Navy, or Army? No, stay up there, Nate. Stay up there. This is important.
Yes.
How many Americans did you see walking around without the American flag on their right shoulder?
None.
Okay, just wanted to ask you that, and yeah, all right, you can go ahead.
So
Nate.
if you look carefully, though, at that one scene, he has the correct rifle. It has the correct scope combination on it. He has a correct spotting scope, but his spotting scope is freely held. Now, spotting scopes go from 20 to 40 times on the magnification, meaning it's highly magnified. And if you don't have that thing at the very least sandbagged, yeah, you're gonna look like you're looking at
Michael
it
J. Fox.
I was
fan.
about
through
to say
a
it.
hurricane. Yeah. So
Maybe he's just more skilled than your spotter is,
So
Henry.
maybe they're more skilled than everybody else.
He was a ranger.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Oh, don't get me started on that fucking shit. Anyway,
Is he tabbed in the movie?
Yeah. Oh, he's got a combat. Yeah, he's tabbed. He's got a combat. Or no, he's scrolled. He's
scroll.
not tabbed.
Okay.
He's scrolled. But he's got.
Oh,
He's
that's
wearing it
true.
as a combat patch.
He is scrolled. Yeah.
So yeah, he's scrolled. But he's not wearing a ranger tab on his right shoulder. But he's also not wearing an American flag, and neither is anybody else. So
Okay.
I'll be fucked.
I will say this: like sometimes when you're out and you have some latitude, a little bit farther away from the flagpole, your uniform does, let's just say, funny things. I sure as hell don't have a lot of footage of how my uniform was, but sometimes if we were far away, it may get modified.
But still,
a little
honest to
bit.
God, if you're wearing a combat patch, right? You've put enough effort into putting your combat patch onto your ACUs. you're not going to throw the American flag onto your right shoulder
Mhm.
above it?
I don't know. I mean, I know one thing. I used to rip my rank off all the time because I didn't.
Well, that's understandable. Like that's fine,
I
but
didn't
like
want to get sniped.
these
That's sham
guys-
shield. That's different.
No, I didn't want to get killed. You know.
yeah, I know you were an officer. There's easy pickings. They see those railroad tracks or the bar, but like this, dude, the American flag. Unless you're going completely sterile, which is very few people actually do that. Nobody had their fucking flag on in this whole fucking film that were wearing ACUs. Nobody had a flag on. Well, no, there was like 3 people. I'm sorry. I shouldn't say nobody. Most of the guys in this film, if you go back and think about it, did not have their flag on their right shoulder. They had a combat patch on, most of them. They did not wear the flag. And I was like, that's fucking no. Because although it would be an IR flag. Well, did they have the IR flags? Even a subdued flag. Who gives a shit? Nobody had that fucking flag on for the most part. And that's kind of fucking stupid. I thought that was shitty.
Yeah, but at the same time, you're not going to see a black guy in ACUs in the middle of freaking Iraq and go like, oh, are you British? No, I mean, it's...
That's what I'm saying. So why the fuck would you want to wear the... Yeah, that's the whole thing. I had the problem with the flag thing is like, when people wear sterile uniforms, like, so I saw some guys that I later figured out were SEALs, right?
Mhm.
They were wearing ACUs and they had completely sterile uniforms, nothing. But they still had the American flag on, which was interesting to me, right? When I was in Iraq.
Right.
And these guys are wearing, their uniforms are patched, they're named, they're ranked, and they don't put the American flag on there. That's fucked up. I mean, that's like not
funny thing about this. The Navy when they deploy, they wear the Gadsden flag on their uniform.
Really?
Yeah, they have a little snake on top of their flag, and so it's like supposed to be. Again, you know, anyone out there, if you're a Navy, please feel free to correct me. But that's like a if you're in a combat location. Let me look it up real quick. Navy flag. Yeah.
Still proves my point that you still wear the American flag in theater.
Evidently, okay, this is from Wikipedia. The first Navy Jack was a naval jack of the United States from 1975 to 76 and gained, and again from 2002 to 2019, authorized by the U.S. Navy as was worn from the jack staff of commissioned vessels from the U.S. And it says don't tread on. It's basically the 13 stripes of the American flag with a snake going across, and it says don't tread on me.
And the Navy wore that.
Yeah, the Navy wears that. Yes, 100%.
They might have been wearing that, and I thought it was just an American flag, is whatever. But like, I know they were wearing something above their right shoulder patch.
Oh, we had a naval element on us, and the lieutenant commander like freaking brought a giant one and pinned it on top of in the headquarters wall. Just, I don't know, Navy guys.
They're Navy. That enough said. Like that's
awesome ranks.
You Navy
awesome
guys
ranks,
out there that are
I should have
listening.
joined the Navy.
I mean,
There's
this
your
answers
answer,
our
by the
question.
way. Yeah.
It was a PSL.
Yeah, let's check into this.
Oh yeah.
Well, no, let's see the actual. Let's see if they got it right or if. Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, okay, so I did see that correct.
Yeah, it is a PSL. Yeah.
Oh, there's no iCup, or is that correct?
So,
you can take that off.
Take them off.
I know you can, but
yeah.
Might
And in the
help
desert, you probably want to take it off because you're gonna get a lot of sweat.
the PSL, I actually don't
yeah.
like shooting with those iCups on when I'm shooting SVDs and Dragon and PSLs because they kind
some of them like suck your fucking eye out.
well, they touch my eyeball sometimes
They
when I recoil,
suck.
and it's
They
gross.
suck.
Yeah, no, it does.
No, dude, seriously, some of those like fucking suction
like
things,
I figure on with the sweat and go.
some of the old Starlight scopes. Yeah, you gotta be careful.
Well, and they, like Henry said, they touch your eyeball when they recoil, and it's not pleasant.
And it's honestly, it's not good if you're in a field environment with something that touches the ground, touching your freaking eyeball.
Right.
Yeah.
I
right.
could,
It's
I could also
hygienic,
see it be a problem, like if you're trying to like do it, if you're trying to do with the suction cup thing on the end. It's like, you know, if you're used, like I feel like you naturally want to put it against your skin, and it's like you could also misjudge a scope bite with that too, you know. If you weren't familiar with it, I'm just guessing.
Yeah,
I've never shot one with
I guess.
with the grip on there. So
Henry, have you ever played with suit scopes like for an FAL?
Yeah, I
or
have
an
one.
LA one. Yeah, so do I.
They touch your eyeball, too.
Fucking Yeah, well, the angle is like fucking so strange. You have to use.
That's
stuff,
why I
you
took
know?
that. That's why I took that off when I had mine back in the day. I took mine off. I'm like, I can't fucking do
So
this.
they
look
they
cool,
lose zero when you quick detach those things. We're talking about the British.
Really?
Yeah, we're talking about the British suit scope, which is a prismatic scope
Yeah.
that goes on an L1A1 SLR.
Yep.
The Soviets actually did copy that in the 1P 29 scope, I think. So it's a 4X combat scope that they strap on their AK-74s, and it's the exact carbon copy of a suit scope.
Interesting. Huh.
Were the Soviets copying something? That's unusual.
What? But yeah, they're crazy. It's funny how some scopes you just like you have to orientate your head.
The
so
PSLs
differently.
are actually fairly common in Iraq.
Really.
Oh well, a lot of Romanian shit is, and I don't know why. And they had the Tabuk, which you also shot on your channel.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, like a lot of this Romanian shit. Like when I was there, the Iraqi army, like they were using mostly Romanian AKs and PSLs and shit. So interesting.
Yeah.
Pew pew pew. Oh, the Browning.
Yeah.
That's looks like a fake one.
Yeah, it's all painted black.
Looks
and
like
It's
aluminum.
dinged up too. Like somebody took a fucking hammer and
So
just
no front sight either.
No, it's
No,
on
there's-
there. You
it's
see,
on there,
you see,
yeah.
it's
Oh,
The front
this
sight
doesn't- I don't see the
is
dome.
in front of the dust, behind
it's
the
hard to
shroud.
see, but it's
behind
there.
the shroud.
It's
Okay.
there.
Yeah,
It's
it's
there.
behind the shroud in front of the feet
Yeah.
cover. That little
Yep.
lip.
Let's see.
I left my gloves.
Say fuck him, dude.
Boom.
Fan.
Also, Henry, did you notice? Did you notice in this film they had that fucker timed so slow? I thought they were gonna have a fucking cook-off. Like it was timed to like 500 fucking rounds, or no, like 450. And I'm like, it was so
it was
slow.
Very
Like the,
slow, yeah.
I think
the timing on the it was horrible.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know the quality of these armors that they hire. To be honest,
Look at those crimped blanks.
Look at Rust.
Look,
Yeah.
look at those
Yeah, they're
crimped,
crimped.
blanks right there.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's they try to camouflage it with the
Yeah.
links, but it didn't work. God damn, yeah, so bad. Oh, the Mag 58, yeah.
Mag 58 is basically a
Mm.
240 Bravo, but in Belgian standard.
And
Yeah.
with a wood stock.
The AT4.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, that's not unrealistic at all.
Yeah, I don't think they were that unrealistic with the small arms in the film.
No.
No, it wasn't
What,
bad.
why did he do this? He doesn't do it any other time during the movie.
Cinematic.
I get, yeah, that's but it
cinematography.
says like,
Yeah.
what's
Is he
up
like
with
a-
the smoke?
Is
He's
he
like
a tablet
distraction.
or something on his suit too? I saw that, and would that be correct for the era?
I'm not sure.
I
Did
don't
you
know.
see tablets, or for the few times
Yeah,
you did see?
yeah,
EOD?
I've seen them. That's what.
Oh, so they did
yeah,
have.
They
Okay,
keep
interesting.
notes. They keep notes on their wrist. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was okay. When that grenade starts to burn, it like starts to kind of burn out the bottom as well as the top. Does that
Yep.
happen, or is that
That's-
just a,
They burn out the
Yeah,
bottom.
Yeah.
they burn out the bottom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
And also out of
If
the
you look at
top too, a
bottom
little
of
bit of
an
smoke
M18,
escapes.
Yeah,
right.
Because
That
once
was
it
just
starts,
funny though.
once it starts burning, like it'll actually heat up the
have one
seal
somewhere
of
Yeah.
the fuse, and it'll start
Yeah,
coming
the-
out of
The
the
That
top.
was
bottom
just
of them are
funny.
usually all black, like just because they all burn. The paint burns off and everything. The
That was
M18s.
just funny though, because yeah, he's like, "What's up with the smoke?" He's like, "Distraction." It's like he never does it any other time during the movie.
It's a western. It's to have that walking through the smoke and he disappears western moment.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
So
again,
stupid.
why-
That-
again, the
It-
film's very great as
Yeah.
as a cinematographer's aspect. Everything else is
Yeah.
crap.
The character though, he did stuff like that. It was so annoying. Like I know they think he's like a fucking awesome badass, but it was just so annoying how cavalier and reckless he was.
All right. Well, I think we've talked about a lot of things. We could again ramble for hours about this, but I think we got a lot of the main points kind of hit as to
Flushed
you
out.
know,
Yeah.
fleshed out. And so now we're going to kind of move into our closing thoughts and a rating, and then our illustrious Brian will tally up the average after we're done, and then we'll let you guys go. They're listening.
In
So-
the computer that will tell us that the Vietnam War is winnable.
All right. So Mike A, why don't you go first?
Okay. Yeah, it's just the writing, man. The writing. It's just really poor and just complete wrong approach to the subject matter and missed opportunity because yeah, like not only the cinematography looks great, but like I mean the sets also look really good and clearly there was some money behind this, and it's just too bad that it took an interesting concept, which is the adrenaline addict in war, and just kind of made it into this this bullshit thing. So missed opportunity. Definitely not living up to the hype that it received, and it was stupid. So
what's your rating?
Probably 3 out of 10.
Cool.
You
Nathan.
pass the talking pillow to.
Nathan.
Okay. I've said a lot of kind of how I feel, with the movie as a whole. I think, the cinematography, again, I keep saying the cinematography, the editing, it's good. It kept me engaged. I would have to say one of the things that really irked me in like Hyena Road was the editing and the cinematography, to the point where I literally raged, to the point where I punished it, and I would punish it again. It sounds bad, as it would normally do, but I really like the cinematography in this, even though it is not accurate to staging of the shots. The shots are beautiful. We've said that in different bits. There's some really good scenes and some really good ways that this was edited and filmed together. However, the story sucks. The writing sucks. I feel like they tried to jam 4 different movies into one and then tried to make a whole nother movie on top of it. And it just doesn't work. It's funny. I was researching just prior to doing this today, and I was curious. I was like, I'm just going to type in best E.O.D. movies. And there's 5. And they are, first one's The Hurt Locker, Shockwave 2, Shockwave 1, and Blown Away.
Why is Shockwave 2 better than Shockwave 1?
I like how you list the second one
first.
Because
it's the first one was the second one was first, and this first one was third. Shockwave 2, Shockwave 1, Blown Away from 1994 with Jeff Bridges, and
God, these titles.
As Long as I Live, which looks like a Spanish movie.
Is Blown Away the one where like they're in Boston?
Tommy Lee and Jeff Bridges.
Oh, dude, the accents are so bad in that.
But
is that the movie where the girl's typing on the computer, and if she stops typing, the bomb's gonna go off? Is that the movie with Tommy Lee Jones and Jeff Bridges?
I've never seen it. I most
it's like a worse version of Speed with like less budget.
That's what it was. Yeah, that's what it was.
We got a Macintosh 2.
My point is that there's no other military E.O.D. movies really, and this is the only thing they have, and it sucks because you could really everything we talked about early on in this of doing this podcast today is that we were talking like how we could make this better, and we gave some really good examples and way we could even do it. Hell, even taking the existing movie and just trimming the fat and making it better, adjusting that narrative and because you can change all that in the editing room floor. Anyway, point is, it dropped the ball on a lot of things we've talked about already. I'm gonna probably be the best score of tonight, but I'm really thinking I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 10. Screaming Mel Gibson's. I know. I think it's because it's the editing and the cinematography that pulls it up. You have to judge it as a whole. But
I will say this: it is not boring. It is like that's the thing. Like some of these movies,
speak for yourself.
Well, I mean, like some of it does keep it going enough to keep you like, all right, I want to see what happens next.
I looked at my phone for different reasons, not because I was bored.
Right. Yeah. So like the Australian movie or the Canadian movie we watched. What was it called? Hyena Road. Yeah.
I almost turned it off 4 times. So yes, I know.
Right. It's like this is a clusterfuck. I can't even follow it. Yeah. So it's like editing and that stuff does play a huge part in making a movie work.
Yeah.
Bri.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a horrible disappointment. I mean, they had a lot of money, they had funding, they had a director that was accredited, and they really fucked it up. And it's sad because this could have been a really good movie. And for everything we talked about, I mean, if this was done in a minimalistic approach, I think it would be really awesome. But they tried to take this small segment of the war in Iraq and blow it up into something so big and massive that it just falls on itself and doesn't work. And yeah, this is probably the hardest film for me to get through. Hyena Road was really hard, but at least I was like, what the fuck?
They're pulling a head out of a bag.
But, no, oh yeah, Nate was talking to me. But like, yeah, it's just it's bad. And after talking to you guys today, I really kind of want to look into making an E.O.D. movie because there's a lot there. You know, there's something to it, and there's only trash. So if we have more than 2 brain cells, I think we can make a better movie than this. But no. So that being said, disappointment. I'm glad that this happened. So the Zero Dark 30 is really good. At least that's the only saving grace. But I'm gonna give it a 2 out of 10. It's just,
Jesus.
Mr. Cheesehead.
Okay, I'll make this very brief. You guys actually hit a lot of points. Brian, I agree with you the most. It just, because I have a personal connection to it, I was unable to appreciate the cinematography as much as I should, because it was so fucking shittily portrayed. It just was so bad. It was just this war movie that people who have never been in the military don't care to talk to people who were and take their advice, and they just make a film about what they think it's like, and it fell so fucking far. Like what Henry was saying, like all the E.O.D. guys that I met were not at all like what they portrayed, and I think it did a very big disservice to that. Wherever you want to look at it, I will say that, yeah, the cinematography was good, and that's the only saving grace, but that doesn't save it enough for me. This is getting a 1 out of 10 from me.
Higher than
Henry.
Mike's lowest score.
So I suppose I'm last. So last.
Yeah, I said Henry. Sorry, I
worries.
laid out my
Our
notes.
guest, please.
Ended on a good note.
All right.
No pressure.
All right. So if
Good luck. Someday they're all counting on you.
Yeah.
okay. So I think, much like a good book, much like a okay. So I think much like a good book, a good film should have a good direction that's based upon its storyline. Now, whether that is a comedy or a chick flick, rom-com drama, or whatever, it has to be based upon a storyline. And that's even plucking away the reality or any of those things that make that the side things that make a movie truly great. It has to have a good storyline, and that storyline is based on the characters, and the characters have to speak to a greater level. I feel like there wasn't a lot of good character development in this. I feel like they betrayed the essence of an E.O.D. tech if we're speaking about characters. And it's just, unfortunately, at the very end, you could see a very shred of the realization almost that they knew, at least I would have known if I were to have written that script, that this could have had a much greater message that could be sent out there, or a much greater highlight to be sent out there. And even if you take away all the inaccuracies, even if you take away the poor storytelling and all that, what you end up with is a disappointment. And perhaps that great disappointment was there to lay ground for Zero Dark 30, which was the very opposite of a disappointment, because I did not know that the writer and the director were the same ones, because I would not be able to tell that it was the same people making the movie when it came down to the storyline. Now, aesthetically, very much you could tell that it's the same director, right? Because the cinematography was beautiful, absolutely gorgeous use of light, amazing use of macro shots in each of those, in many of those scenes. The use, the documentation of movement was really nice. Watching the machine gun belt feed into the 50 cal, watching the casings hit the gravel floor with the dust coming off of the stones as your IED exploded. I mean, those are amazing visual elements that were wasted on a poorly constructed storyline. And so I think a good movie should never lack a good storyline, because that storyline brings you away from where you're sitting into the movie, into the mind of the character, and as the time you leave, you find yourself still sitting in your chair and forgetting that you're sitting in that chair watching a movie. And this film absolutely fails at doing that, and so it's going to be a 1 out of 10, unfortunately. And that 1 is purely because of the excellent use of cinematography and the technical side.
Very well put. And yeah, the only reason I gave it a 2 is because it was 1, and then the whole cereal scene happened, and it's like, that deserves a point. So now we enter our scores into the computer, and interesting. 2.4. Higher than I thought. But Nate will remember the scores. How does this rank?
I hope it's fucking higher than Hyena Road. That's the only reason why I gave it a 5.
Yeah, without your score, it would have been bad.
Yeah,
but,
I honestly, I mean, I already said the score, but if I were to tone it down, I'd probably say a 3. But honestly, because Henry's points were really good at the closing point. You know, everything I kind of wanted to say, but I don't have the brain or the words to say it. It just I think he nailed that really dead on. And I mean, yeah, I mean it's I'm gonna still stick by my score, but the character development's trash. And like you said, if there's no story, then what's the fucking point? So
Cool.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Henry. We hope that we can have you on again, and you can give us some cool insights in some other military films, you know, from your experiences, or not.
You can give us another rager of a movie to go off of.
No.
Yeah.
Look, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure being on the set here in the back room. But I think one of the big things I actually learned from you guys a lot too, from basically from the minds of film production and the mentality of constructing a good story, and some of the small technical details of it. And I appreciate you guys having me on the show for that.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Freaking pleasure.
Yeah.
And so thanks for listening, guys. And if there's one thing you can walk away with this episode, it's that the fish mac is not the chosen meal of the Ordnance Corps. So.
Disgusting.
And then really quick before we end it, Henry, plug your YouTube channel really quick, and anything else you want to plug.
Sure. If so, my co-host Josh and I, Josh is a USPSA Grandmaster class shooter, and I am a former Ordnance Corps ordnance officer. So we do a lot of field testing on different firearms, and a lot of that we relate to the historical employment of said firearms, and we just document them in either the field test method, or we make longer form documentaries on them. And you could find us on 9-Hole Reviews on YouTube, or just 9holereviews.com. But recently we've also started a podcast. And if you look on any podcast app that's out there and you look up 9H Podcasts, that's Niner Hotel Podcast, you'll find us. And we talk about, not on the podcast side, we focus on not just the firearms, but more so we try to talk about the people who use the firearms, the people who carried said firearms. So so far there's only a handful of episodes. We talked to Brandon Herrera for our first one because we were both flabbergasted at the missed deployment of the Russian AK-12 and some of the errors that were associated with that. And then recently we published an episode where I interviewed a Royal Hong Kong police officer. That's a Hong Kong that was pre-colonial or during colonial, so pre-handover, and talked about some of the nuances of being a Hong Kong police officer. Again, this era, 1967 and onwards, were the Royal Hong Kong police that put down communist riots and guarded the border with firefights against the communists. So you're talking about post-handover an entire 180 shift of the police force and purgings and stuff like that. And just recently this week, I interviewed my friend Brad, who was he was a Marine who was in the First Battle of Fallujah In fact, he was the first Marine shot during the first Battle of Fallujah. And the reason why the entire battle kicked off in the first place, because they got sent on some stupid patrol and he got shot in the head. So these are the types of stories that I'm trying to bring to light. And we may have more stuff. We may stick to that genre, but that's what we're looking at. That's what we're working on 9H podcasts and 9 whole reviews.
Cool.
Definitely check it out.
Right on.
If you listen to the man for 3 hours, fucking, he knows his shit.
Yeah, he definitely knows his
We're
shit.
just learning
so.
together, man.
Definitely didn't
Yeah,
seem
man.
like 3 hours, but
It was fun.
Yeah, this flew. This was insane.
Yep.
So, all right,
Awesome.
Brian, you want to close it out?
I think we basically did, but thanks for joining us, guys, and see you next week. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to leave a rating. Otherwise, Mel Gibson won't stop screaming. If you like this content, make sure to check out our Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram pages. If you want to directly support our work, make sure to check out our Patreon. All these links are in the description below. Until the next time, Scuttlebutt out.